Good morning, good morning, everyone, to PerfWeb 101. Thank you all for being here. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Dr. Samir Patel, perfusionist physician extraordinaire, and really been a joy, really, to have had an opportunity to work with him over the past, few months?
Yeah.
Few months so far.
God is fast, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's gone. It's flying by.
It's flying by.
It's flying by.
Yeah, I mean.
And but anyway, we'll talk more about that as we go, just to kind of keep time on track, because I'm always in trouble for that. If you want to contact us, you can do so at contact@perfusioneducation.com. You see that right there on the bottom, and our contact number. If you would like to call in, we'd love for anyone to call in.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
We don't even care if it's the night janitor somewhere in Taiwan. If you're up and watching, please call.
Yeah.
It's 832-239-5358. That's 832-239-5358. I'm going to tell you something. I am absolutely 100% convinced.
Okay.
That we are going to, at one time, can you bring Samir up with me? Yeah. Thanks. Wide shot. Thank you. At one time, we are going to have so many people calling in, we're going to need a second phone line.
That would be amazing.
Because right now, we don't even need the one phone line, but I always give people our call-in number.
One day,
of
Joe,
these days,
it'll happen.
I want somebody. That's why I keep saying so many controversial things.
Yeah, to get that guy that's mad and to call in, even if he's upset.
Yes, anybody, call in. Argue with me. Call me bad names. I don't care. Somebody call them. Imagine just call somebody to call the number. Okay, moving on from there. Let's go. Keep going. Our Chiron down at the bottom, that scroll that you see, has all of the same information that I just gave you, should you need it. But again, if you're driving in your car and you want to call, 832-239-5358 is the number. But that Chiron is on and off throughout the show, so you can always refer to it for information. Our MediWeb app, this is a perfusion and critical care ECMO app. It's for perfusionists, ECMO specialists, intensive care nursing, mid-levels, or they call them advanced practice providers now, APPs, they don't call them mid-levels anymore. But really anybody that is dealing with anything in the cardiac OR, even anesthesia would benefit from this app, frankly. The cardiac OR or in the critical care unit, this app is absolutely a fantastic tool to have at your ready disposal. It's fast, it's easy, and it gives you quick access to some important information. And it's fun to just play with the numbers because you really learn a lot from it. I've had a really good experience with it. Anyway, our MediWeb app, you find it on the Apple Store, you can find it on Google's Play, and it's, we're talking about $2.99 for the full app, 99 cents for the standalone dosage rate calculator, IV dosage rate calculator portion of the app, but it's included in the $2.99. I'd just spend the $2.99. It's $2.99. It's a drop in the bucket compared to everything else that we buy. And it's really worth a whole lot more than that. Now, if you could also take a look at our podcasts, your streaming software, whichever podcast streaming software you like, this will work fine. You can listen to our podcast series. You can listen to all of the programs. And, of course, you can listen to us live because this is actually being aired live, both in the podcast form and in the video form, as you see here if you're watching online. So, do that. I'd appreciate it. And also, if you would, on any of these social media sites, whether you're watching on Facebook or X or whatever other social media platform we are on, hopefully all of them, please like us and share us and forward us and do all those things that really help us tremendously. Now, I have to tell everybody this. I just found this out this morning because I started seeing advertising on our YouTube channel, our program. And I was like, are they monetizing us? And Magic, our director over here, he says, or our technical advisor rather, he says, yeah, he says, we're getting paid. And I said, well, how much did we make?
$4.
And he says, well, I think over the past month, for yesterday's program, we made $4. I was like, wow, this is incredible. I finally turned a profit, not a profit, but at least I made some money on this program. You have no idea how excited I was.
You have some kind of net gain, you know?
I almost feel like we all need to go out to lunch and celebrate on this one. All right, let's move on. I've given you a basic introduction of my good friend, Dr. Samir. He's a really interesting fellow. You can find his CV, his summary about him on the channel where our resident faculty is located. Yep. So you can always find information on all of us in that particular location. But he certainly brings, I think, a tremendous amount of enthusiasm to this, because that's one of the things that I am seriously challenged with, is finding others who share my passion for wanting to convey information that could be beneficial to some of you out there. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why I do this. I have a fundamental philosophy, and I don't mean cut into your time. I hope you don't mind.
You're totally fine. Go ahead.
Well, we could talk about this because I'll like your input on this. But I have a fundamental philosophy, and that philosophy is that we all, anytime that you have become accredited, certified, licensed as a medical practitioner, a provider of some sort, in our case, it's perfusion that we're doing, that we have an obligation to share both our knowledge and our ability to take information and digest it in a way that we can then reconvey that information to you in a way that may make better sense. It's theoretical, but most of the people, I think, that are going to learn something from us are going to be our juniors in one way or another. And so some of our more senior colleagues that could be participating, you might learn something, but we're going to learn from you just as well. And we can also learn from the youngest amongst us. So I think information sharing is important. And where this gets complicated, if I may, is that there's a lot of things that we do that we know work and work well. And one of the things, because we live in a competitive environment, medicine is highly competitive.
Absolutely.
A lot of people are willing to share the recipe for making the pasta, but they're not willing to give you the recipe to the sauce.
Right.
And fundamentally that goes against my philosophy.
Sure.
Because I feel that anything that could benefit a patient in any way should be openly shared.
Absolutely.
I feel that that's an obligation, a responsibility that we have. So, with that said, it's a challenge for me to find people like you that come here and are enthusiastic about wanting to do this.
Right.
And I gravitate towards people like that.
Well, thank you.
It's something that I appreciate and I enjoy. So with all of that said, once again, I will tell you once again, welcome to our team.
Absolutely.
Because now you are an integral part of it.
I am. Thank you.
You've been jumped in
and hit the ground running.
And we're gonna go with that again today. So the floor is yours, kind sir.
All right.
And I'll let you go from here. Oh, one last thing.
What's up?
This week we're gonna have Matt Warhoover coming in, and he's gonna be talking about NRP. For those of you who don't know who Matt Warhoover is, let me just tell you, because you need to be paying attention to this. He is one of the people who is the developer of the fine tuner. Maybe not the true developer, but he's right there in the very beginning. And this guy knows more about organ transplantation, organ preservation, organ regeneration after cardiac circulatory death, all of these things. So that is going to be probably one of the most impressive lectures that we're going to see. Certainly more impressive than mine. And with that, because he truly is an expert. This guy really knows his stuff.
I'm excited for
that. And I think he's going to give us a lot of really good information. So with that said, apologize again for my rather lengthy introduction and my rather lengthy start to the program, but I truly am this time turning it over.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Good to see everybody again for those that caught PerfWeb 100. And you guys know a little bit about me. I got into my history. I taught you guys some stuff. Well, let's just keep the ball rolling. And these are topics, again, like Joe alluded to, we're going to kind of be talking about organ transplantation and perfusion of said organs. We're going to get started with basically the beginning. So I know organ availability, it doesn't sound like the most exciting topic, until you're in the OR and the heart isn't arriving on time and you're thinking, should I go get it, myself? But today we're going to dig into the story before the organs hit the table, This is like the prequel, the origin story. And I promise, it's more interesting than you think. So let's go on. All right. As I start off all my stuff, I like to tell you guys the objectives of what we're going to learn, give you guys a roadmap of where we're going, and this is what I'm hoping to accomplish today, We're going to understand how the U.S. transplant system actually works, warts and all, knowing the sources of organ donors and what limits their availability. Organ donors and what limits the organ's availability. And it's not just there aren't enough, you know what I mean? Sometimes the organ's just not viable. Seeing where policy meets perfusion, how national rules affect your 3 a.m. transplant call. Realizing that you're not just the only person running the circuit, you're part of a complex chain that decides who lives and who waits, okay? And finally, we're gonna, get a peek at what's going on the horizon, from pig hearts to portable warm perfusion gadgets that cost more than a house, So buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy, heart-pounding ride. Pun is completely intentional. All right, so the introduction, let me get started with a quick story. I once had a patient, who waited about 11 months for a heart. This was in India. Multiple dry runs, finally got a call, and he was already on ECMO. And they prepped the OR, canceled dinner plans and whatnot, and then they waited, and then they found out the heart couldn't be used. The ischemic time was too long. Everyone was, deflated, literally, emotionally, and the talk is about why that happens, about how perfusion intersects with organ supply in ways you may not always see, This is your chance to understand the system outside your immediate battlefield, so that when you're fighting in the trenches, you're fighting smarter. And I will say this about this story from India, is America, we have a little bit better system than India has about getting those organs there on time. We got helicopters, jets, planes, all that. India has some stuff. It's just, if you're in a remote part of town, it's that 4-hour ischemic time, you're kind of fighting against the clock. Yeah, it's rough. In that country, it's really rough. So yeah, this patient didn't end up getting that heart because around the 4-hour mark, they were still like 3/4 of the way, still had a quarter of the way to go, and then boom, that was it. Patient died, obviously, Yeah, but again, that's kind of transplantation. What can you do? We're still working on it in ways,
Yeah, then we have to worry, even if you get the organ, you're going to have early graft dysfunction.
Exactly. So, and then there's that, right? Like, is it going to work? Will it reject? Will it accept? Like, there's so many like moving parts to organ transplantation. It's not just finding the heart or the lungs or the liver or the kidneys. So why does this matter to you? You might be thinking, oh, I'm on pump or ECMO. What does this policy stuff have to do with me? Well, a lot actually. Every patient. Here's why. Every patient you put on ECMO hoping they'll get a heart or a lung, that depends on, the system. Every dry run you've ever scrubbed in for, there's a supply chain failure, Every urgent call that becomes a stand down is because of mismatched logistics, policy, donor criteria, organ viability. There's always other stuff going on, a lot of moving parts in this that don't include you. You might be ready to go, and boom, it just won't go. So yes, you're deeply embedded in the organ availability issue, even if you never touch the phone. So here's an overview of like, the U.S. organ transplant system. Let's meet like the cast, the members of it. You got OPTN, which is like the government's task, transplant task force. They write the rules. They're like the transplant IRS. Then you got OPTN. You got UNOS. They're like the bouncer at the transplant nightclub. They decide who gets in and who waits. Then you got your OPOs, your organ procurement organizations. They go and they find the donors, manage the body, call the shots. You got transplant centers. That's like, where we are usually, we as perfusionists enter the story. The hungry team watching, the list, like, the NFL draft, waiting to be called up, So when you're wondering why are things moving so slowly, it's because the system is there's multiple levels to it, It's like the DMV, You're just going to go, there's lines, there's multiple pieces. You can sometimes have your number called, sometimes not. Sometimes the person even after you can go before you. It's just complicated. So the numbers. So let me hit you with the math, About 100,000 plus are usually patients are waiting, Only about 40,000 get organs each year. 17 people die per day waiting. It's tragic, but, that's just the name of the game that we're in. And that's one every 85 minutes, of the day. And it's not because we don't have enough organs. It's because we don't have enough usable organs, fast systems or fair processes. Again, in that, the usable is key. So imagine running like a trauma service where only 40% of your patients, didn't survive because of a paperwork delay, and that's what this system feels like. So what are the types of organs that are in demand? Well, I kind of said them earlier, the kidneys, organs are not all created equal, So there's the kidneys, everybody wants one. It's like the Honda Civic of organs, reliable, durable. And you can find a used one,
But yet so incredibly delicate.
It's so delicate, right?
It is so weird to me.
Exactly. But I feel like we are always taking kidneys, right? Like on these NRP cases that we do. But somehow, they're so delicate. But we try to take them. I mean, any patient we have.
We put them on bypass.
We do.
and we have, in cardiac surgery, what is it? It's a 5 to 7% renal failure rate?
Yep.
Renal failure rate.
Absolutely, yeah. Right.
AKI rate's way higher.
Way, way higher. But you're talking about like actual failure, like creatinine's above 3 or 4. Dialysis, right. So
it's a lot.
It's a lot. The kidneys, again, they do so much more than people give them credit for. People only kind of give them credit for filtration. They do a little bit more than that, A lot, right. So, blood balance, electrolyte balance, they play a part in our crit. They play a part in getting your salts in, potassiums in, keeping the fluids balanced. I touched on a lot of this stuff in Perf 100, So y'all guys check out PerfWeb 100.
Yeah, absolutely.
I talked about the kidneys and what they do in my fluid balance lecture. But they do a lot. I mean, so again, and they're so, like Joe said, they're so fragile. It doesn't take much to screw your kidneys up, A little bit of diabetes over a long period of time, screw your kidneys up. But it's a little bit of high sugar over 25 years, good luck kidneys, It's an organ, and that's why they're in demand. Everybody wants a kidney, It's just the way it is, Livers are another thing that we like, we take a lot of livers as well when we do these NRP cases. Those are, from what I've done, in the NRP cases I've been privy to, it's always been, those are like the two best buds,
Yes.
It's the liver kidneys. Kidneys. We're going to take the liver, we're going to take the kidneys.
Yes.
It's just, they're friends. Livers are a little more trickier than kidneys, though. They're tricky to match, but they're less fragile, than like heart or lungs or something like that. They're a little more resilient. Even in the body, they're pretty resilient. One of the most resilient of all the organs that we have in our body. You got to do a lot to damage your liver. It takes a lot, and it takes a lot over a course of a long period of time. They're highly regenerative, so it's. Then of course we got the heart and the lungs, which another, the heart everybody knows about. I didn't, I put that at the end, because we know about those. Pancreas, intestines, those are also taken. We also, in our NRP cases, we've come across, we've taken pancreas or two, correct. And again, I've only been doing these NRP cases about a month and a half. Joe kind of just threw me into it as of recently. But in that month and a half, I've been part of a lot of them. Yeah. I've been going to literally all of them.
Yeah. It's still a very new concept. And
right.
I think it's in its infancy.
Yeah, it's
and it'll be very interesting, I think, to see. My lecture is a little more about the process, I think, right. Versus the science itself. But it's going to be really interesting. I feel like it's the new horizon in perfusion, and I am very pleased that there are requirements being written, codified into law, essentially, that only perfusionists licensed or certified, or both, can do these cases.
Right.
And because I will talk about a little of that, of people calling themselves perfusionists by being really what they are as preservationists,
right.
running this device,
right,
on a single organ. That's not, that's not an actual patient that you expect to wake up and go home.
Right, exactly.
But you don't want to mess the organ up. So
no.
It's a serious job.
Very serious. I mean, we get some of these organs where lactate is pretty damn high.
Yeah, you got to take it
really
really
high.
seriously. But I do think that there's been some blurring of the lines of what is a perfusionist in this, and I think that CMS has come down pretty aggressively and said a perfusionist is someone who went to perfusion school and is either licensed in a state or certified by the ABCP to perform perfusion. Right. So that's how they're defining it.
Well, that's
and
good.
That's helpful for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, anybody can say they're a perfusionist, and
that's what's been happening.
And that's what's been happening. And we work hard. I worked hard. You worked hard to become one. It's not an easy road.
No.
Given my background, it was still pretty damn hard. Even though I was pretty well educated coming into perfusion school, it was still hard. You know, it's not easy.
No.
By any stretch of the means. So yeah, I mean, glad though that they're doing that at least for us. So.
One other thing I got to ask you.
What's up?
Why, who came up with this plan? Who designed us so that
that's a debatable
our
question.
Our liver, though important, we need it to live.
Absolutely.
Is regenerative.
Right.
But our heart isn't.
The one that works the hardest, and
lungs aren't. Right.
Brain's not.
Kidneys not.
Yeah, brain's not.
Brain certainly not.
Brain not at all. They're the only permanent cells in our body.
Yes, and mine are diminishing daily.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I mean,
isn't that strange though? That
strange.
The liver is so incredibly, because you can do a living transplant. You can
Absolutely.
A living donor. You can take a lobe of their liver,
right?
Put
a
it in
small
somebody
lobe
else
too.
and grow another liver out of it.
Absolutely. They take just like one little piece sometimes, and boom, you can function off that. It's weird, And then we have kidneys. We got two of them. Like
it is a strange organ.
You don't really need two of them, but it's nice having two, but not necessary for life.
Sure. There you go.
So, organ sources. We got about 3 types of donors. We got the brain dead ones, which most ideal organs are well perfused until recovery. It's like, keeping fruit in the fridge. You get to buy some time. Circulatory death is the more popular one as of recently. It's a little bit tougher because once circulation stops, you're racing against a clock. Think bananas like left in a hot car. It's you don't have long before it's mush. And then, of course, living donors. It's funny that we're talking about living donors, but those are like your kidneys and your livers, which me and Joe just were talking about literally right now. Rare but invaluable. Also, like it's impressive, to be able to say, "Oh, I gave 40%. I gave a kidney to somebody. I gave 40% of my liver to somebody." You can totally do that. And like Joe just alluded to, it doesn't take much. You can give 40's a lot. If you give away 40% of your liver, that guy, whoever's receiving it, is sitting pretty, as long as, of course, it sits pretty inside their body and doesn't have any issues. So, as I mentioned, for perfusionists, DCDs are becoming increasingly common. You may even get pulled in for an NRP Eventually rebooting circulation, like rebooting the circulation after death. Cue the ethics committees. Oh God, these guys are the worst. But yeah, I mean, our Joe will get into what we actually do in those cases, but essentially we're trying to bring the organs back to life. Once you have circulatory death, your body goes into anaerobic glycolysis. It'll just, because it doesn't have the oxygen, it doesn't have the stuff needed. It'll eventually start making lactic acid. Lactic acid it's not fun. It goes around, causes metabolic acidosis, a high ion gap metabolic acidosis, which is the worst kind of metabolic acidosis. There are types of metabolic acidosis. Maybe one day I will teach you guys about those.
I would enjoy that, actually.
Yeah, but yeah, those are not fun, especially the increased anion gap metabolic acidosis. Those are bad news. Those mean you gained an acid somewhere in your body, and it's not a good thing. So yeah, let's get into a little bit more about each one of these. So donation after brain death, DBD. Yes, it's the good kind of dead. In DBD, we maintain organ perfusion, oxygenation, stability. Everything is predictable. In these cases, they give you time to set up, run your labs, prep calmly, almost like a normal OR day, except it's 2 a.m. and somebody's playing Spotify in the background and stuff like that, trying to stay awake. Other than that, it's, a lot more calm and collective. So the next kind, of course, is donation after circulatory death, DCD, which is the one that I alluded to a second ago. And this is where things get a little bit more exciting. DCD donors kind of just flatline. We do a no-touch waiting period, usually about, in this state, it's 5 minutes. Not exactly sure how it is in other states, but in this state, 5 minutes.
In Italy, it's 20.
I know. That you were telling me about that, and they have good outcomes with the 20.
Great outcomes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They're
so yeah,
stand-up.
he told me that blew my mind because in our ORs, man, they're running like crazy after this 5 minutes, and if even there's like 1 or 2 minute extra delay, people start losing their minds, and they're like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god!" But apparently, we got 20 minutes, and you can just chill, and take your time and do it right, not have the cannulas fly out because they weren't put down right or whatever.
I know we are very pressed for time. There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, I don't know, and maybe we shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Maybe
but we really move fast once that 5 minute declaration happens.
Yes.
Everything starts to go.
It's
like
really fast. Yes.
Yeah, it's really fast.
And I would love to really compare our outcomes with Italy's to see that Matt's going to be able to answer this question tomorrow because he knows this stuff.
I'm excited for that. Yeah.
I think that's going to be.
We
really
had a
good.
case where from incision time, we were on NRP in 7 minutes.
That's a lot. That's fast.
It was really fast. Of course, the case was amazing. Our lactic acid was pretty reasonable, like at a 7 coming in, and we got it down to like a 4. We didn't even need to do NRP for the full hour. We just went 35 minutes or so.
This person, so that's one of the things is that I see is this person must have died quickly.
Yes.
And that's part of the issue is
and not in the PACU.
Right.
In the OR.
Right.
Because that transit time takes some time too.
It does. But when you have an extended agonal period before they die, then you are really behind it.
Exactly.
Like if they die at minute 119,
right, when
120 is your cutoff,
right,
and they were basically agonal for the past 45 minutes,
right.
That lactic acid is way higher.
Yeah, this one was again. I mean, I would say our lagnal period was short. Patient expired shortly after we withdrew care, like literally 15 minutes or so. Like it was all very quick.
Yeah,
the whole case was just done so fast. But even in that case, we were just really moving fast. Again, 7 minutes to going on NRP. So that alone tells you how fast we're going. That's from incision. So we incised, cannulated, did all that stuff in that short amount of time, But, I mean, the case went well, so it doesn't really help my argument, are we moving too fast?
Yeah.
But that's the name of that's what it is.
Understood.
So, donation after circulatory death, back to this. You may get pulled in for an NRP, like I was saying, essentially putting the body on either ECMO or using an NRP circuit, which is very close to ECMO, except for you do have a reservoir, so it's not a closed system, it's an open system. Joe might get into all that, the differences or whatever, but NRP, we will get to that. I'm basically just going to touch on what I can, because as it applies to what I'm trying to explain to you without getting too much into it. So basically, it's like resuscitating somebody from the neck down. That's kind of what we're doing. Weird, yes, but it improves the organ viability, and it's gaining traction, as Joe said. It's catching on. Possibly the future of perfusion, you know. We'll see. It's exciting time because we're getting in at the ground floor, you know. We're getting to see it build. You know, we didn't, at least I wasn't around when Gibbons first started cardiopulmonary bypass, but
I wasn't far off.
no, you weren't far off.
I wasn't that far off.
No.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to get on the, you know, I didn't get to get in on the ground floor on CPB, but hey, you know, I imagine those that were around then have seen some drastic changes in it, you know.
I've seen some drastic changes.
Yeah, I bet you
46 years, man. This is
That's
my
what I'm saying.
46th
Sixth year. I remember you saying that.
And
Graduated in 1979, right?
Yes, that's after
crazy.
my training.
Yeah,
So
see?
my training program was 2 years.
Yeah.
Clinical, 2 years.
You graduated perfusion school before I was born. I was born in 1980.
Yeah.
And you
I
graduated.
became certified the year of your birth.
Yeah, see, that's, you've been doing it a long time. I'm 45 years old, and about to, you know, he's been doing it 46 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's scary.
It's scary. And now here he is trying to get back some of that knowledge
I
of
don't know.
46 years.
Actually, no. What I'm really doing, I don't know if everybody in the audience can see this or not, and I probably shouldn't be joking because this is a serious topic, but there's been a benefit to it.
Okay.
I've been sniffing anesthesia gas, you know, because it's around me all the time for years. And I think it's
That
look at-
Forain, been
look at
sniffing that
how good-
Forain.
Look at how good. Well, it was halothane at the
Oh
time.
no, that's even worse.
But look at how good I look for my age.
Oh man.
I mean, really, you think about it.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true.
I look pretty damn good. I'm pretty energetic. So
Yeah.
I really, I give credit for this to the volatile vapor anesthetic that I have
Yeah.
sniffed my whole life.
Well, it's a good thing it wasn't halothane this entire time. At least Forain, you know, your cardiac output and all that doesn't get affected. Your heart's good.
Yeah, halothane was good shit.
Halothane. That was the good stuff. It drove everything down. didn't draw the line nowhere.
I know. In the lab for the goats, we were using cyclopropane.
Oh man.
Yeah.
We don't even use that on humans.
Not anymore.
No.
We did
We did?
at one time.
God, see, changes 46 years. We wouldn't touch that stuff in today's day and age.
No, it's dangerous.
It's dangerous.
It's explosive.
Exactly.
I know. We used to blow the shit up for
Oh
fun.
my God.
Yeah, we had some fun. We did some crazy shit in
Yeah,
the lab.
see? All right. So living donation, I've kind of already told you guys about what it is. It's, you know, those guys are like rock stars, dude. You get like a pin and everything when you're a living donor. Those guys are giving up a piece of their livelihood to somebody else to save somebody else. It's a big deal, but we've been doing that a while. It's nothing new. It's nothing, you know, that's been going on for quite a while. That one takes some serious balls, you know, to go under the knife for somebody else. Like, nothing's wrong with you when you go under the knife. You're literally doing it for somebody else. Oftentimes, they get to meet the person. There's like all kinds of weird things that go on today.
Well, you know, it's really interesting because Vicky Carlisle, you know, our incredibly talented. Well, she's director of education, director of ECMO specialist, director of. I mean, she's director of everything.
Yeah.
And that's just because she can do everything. I mean, she's like a phenom.
Yeah, she's a jack of all trades.
She is, and she's just so incredibly smart. But she brought up a thing with the what did you just say about that? What did you say about what were you just saying?
About living donors?
Yeah, living. Yeah, living.
About how they get to meet the now they they introduce
yes.
them to like the donor recipient,
Right,
the
but-
recipients and all that. There's like all kinds of weird things going on today.
Right, but she takes it in a different approach. She says that it's one of the procedures, like the original procedure that carried with it a 200% mortality
Wow.
is cross circulation.
Wow.
When Walt Lillihei, Dr. Lillihei, did cross circulation, both the parent and the child could have died during that surgery. So it comes with a 200% mortality risk.
Yeah,
Or
see?
possible.
Again,
This is the same thing.
it's
When
the
you're a
same
living
thing.
donor,
Yeah.
and you go under general anesthesia, anything can happen.
Oh, absolutely.
So again, this is one of those procedures like cross circulation that actually carries with it a 200% risk of mortality.
And they explain this to you too before you do it, because they keep these donors pretty well informed. And again, they're heroes. I mean, like rock star heroes. They're to say yes, despite being explained all the risks that come along with it, which by law they have to tell you about.
Well, I should get one of those pins because I donated my hair.
Did you? Oh,
I
good.
pulled it out strand by strand.
That explains where it went. I figured.
Somebody has it.
There you go, PerfWeb.
I think it's David.
Mystery solved.
I think David Sullivan. David Sullivan has my hair.
So yeah. So the bottleneck. This is the slide where we all sigh in unison. Why aren't we transplanting more? Logistics, the organs in Florida, your patients in Oregon, logistical stuff. Organs declined for quality, but maybe they were fine. Who decides the quality? It's a tough road. Constant barriers and delay. Delayed recognition for donors. We're wasting opportunities because we're stuck in an outdated system that's trying to handle 2025 level of demand. Maybe they should look at some of these rules again. Maybe they should revamp what they think is a usable organ or not. I'm, again, no organ expert, so I'm just saying that we have a lot of organs that get deemed not usable that started out pretty damn usable. You know what I mean? Just stating what I've seen, So the factors that can affect organ availability, it's a cocktail of limitations, donor comorbidities, late referrals, organ refusals due to a meh appearance like I was just talking about. They visualize it, they don't like it. It's funny because visualization is completely, subjective, there's no real science behind that.
No, it's an opinion.
It's a complete opinion, Some docs may be like, oh, it looks great, where another doc's like, oh, that looks like shit. So who decides what is whatever. And yes, there's the cultural, racial, there's the financial disparities, stuff like that, We could do a double transplant volume with a better consent process, and a more aggressive mindset on organ recovery. That's what we need. I feel that we are moving in the right direction. We're just not moving fast enough. Let me reiterate, So the role of OPOs, OPOs are the link between death and life, but not all OPOs are created equal. Some are run like, Formula One pit crews. Others are kind of run like, high school group project. It's just, depends on what kind of traffic they're seeing, how much practice they have at what they're doing, The government apparently now grades them, finally, Some of them, got the equivalent of a oops, try again next year, So good OPOs, like I said, you get better as you do more. So the states, the places, the regions that have more organs, those obviously get run a lot better because they're just more practiced at it. So policies used to be keep it local. Now there's the sickest first within range. This shift it boosts fairness. It also increases chaos. Leads to long-distance organ transport, which now is a lot more possible, which, again, I've kind of mentioned earlier in India is not a thing, but it leads to more logistical fails as well, though, and more 4 a.m. calls for you, dear perfusionist. We're saving more lives, which is great, but at the cost of more unpredictability. They pop up on your radar so fast, and there's been so many times where Joe just did this to us very recently. Go to Louisiana. You got to get there in 8 hours. Go. Okay.
It's not what I say. Don't tell people I do that. That's not
No. Joe didn't say that, but we did have to get there pretty quickly. Again, it's not planned, and it's not his plan. Organs were available. Things were happening. We
No,
had to get there.
that is what happens.
That is what happened, correct.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
You can't,
No.
the world of transplant medicine is highly unpredictable.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah.
Because you can't predict death, right? Like, oh, you can sometimes, but most
but you
of the
don't
time,
know well, I mean, it's a really long process. You have
absolutely.
You have you have the patient come in. Are they a donor, not a donor? If they're a donor, somebody's notified, and then they have to go through, talking to the family or
Right.
anybody else. And I mean, it's a
process.
It is a laborious process.
Right.
It's a long process.
Right.
Not anything that's easy.
No, and the whole process can get messed up at any single step. It can all fall apart in a multi-stepped, process. So we'll get to all that, in the next few days. I'm sure Matt will shed some light with us about processes and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Given that he actually plays an integral role in all this. Heart transplants, just going to talk about it. As perfusionists, you guys many of you may do NRP, may not, but a lot of us have been part of heart transplants, As a student, you're in it sometimes. So, hearts are in high demand, obviously. We've got a lot of heart failure people out there. There's like a lot of them.
There's a lot.
It's a growing number every year, but Lord have mercy.
Shocked at the
I know.
numbers.
And I mean, sure, we're having, cooler technologies out there that, will buy you some time to get hearts, impellas, VADs, stuff like that. Now the bridge to heart transplant is an actual bridge, that you can actually maintain somebody on till they can get the heart. So what is all these things, these impellas and, LVADs and all these things, what are they doing? They're just increasing more demand for more hearts. Where people wouldn't have been able to get one before, now we can buy them some time to get a heart. So boom, now all of a sudden, huge surge, in demand for hearts. Of course, more than we can produce, but that's the case for every organ, as I covered at the beginning, So, there's different statuses, like status 1 is like ECMO or mechanical ventilation plate. I like where they're like on mechanical vent or they're on inotropes. That's like what a status 1 is. Status 6 is like the opposite. They're kind of just doing okay. They might be in the ICU, but they can wait. So these status 1s, they usually get the priority on a new heart. They're the ones that aren't doing well. In the ICU, completely reliant, on inotropes or mechanical ventilation, ECMO, Impella, whatever. Bottom line is if we turned any one of these things off, kaput, they're done, right? So if you're running an ECMO or anything like that, then you're literally creating eligibility. Like it's kind of controversial, Joe. Like, I want to move them up the list. Put them on ECMO. That'll get their status bumped up a few notches instantly.
It's true.
It's true, that's power. That's responsibility, So that's on doctors, obviously, to make that decision, not on us perfusionists. We're just the ones that run the ECMO. Or the ECMO specialist does if your hospital does that, but whatever.
There was a guy in Florida. I'll share this story with you. I went to visit an old friend of mine, and this patient had been there for over 300 days on ECMO. He had tandem.
Okay, tandem
ECMOs.
heart.
Tandem ECMOs.
Oh, ECMO on a stick.
Tandem ECMOs.
Yes.
He had 2 ECMOs. Two circuits.
Two, not the tandem heart ECMO.
No.
Okay,
2
yeah, sorry.
circuits.
2 circuits, got you.
Yeah. And just totally 100% dependent on it. And he just, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I can't live like this. And he wanted everything off. They eventually did turn it off. Couldn't get him an organ, couldn't find him anything. He's, I can't do this anymore. I cannot live like this anymore. And quit.
I mean, that's why we try to keep them asleep when they're on ECMO, right? Like, it's a lot.
No, we go the other direction.
Now we're waking them up.
Dude, well, it depends on the disease state that
Obviously.
we're talking about, right?
Right.
There's no question that early ambulation and trying to get these people to some degree of activity
Would be good.
well, if you don't, and they're just laying in the bed and you're not doing anything, they're going to just decompensate. They're not going to be a candidate because they're not going to be recoverable. They won't be able to tolerate the recovery.
And you won't be able
after
to
the
wean off
procedure.
in the first damn place
Right.
because they'll be too highly reliant on it.
Right. And even with the transplant, now they're so their muscle mass is so incredibly diminished. I mean, they'll
Right.
die. They won't.
Right.
They won't survive.
Yeah, they'll have
So you have to get these
too
people,
much muscular atrophy and all that.
you have
It's
to
just-
mobilize these people.
Right.
You just do, and you have to do it as early as you possibly can. So you can't just leave people on ECMO asleep
Yeah.
or paralyzed or anything like that. It's a death sentence. You got to put it in. You got to wake them up, and you got to get them moving. Unless you have a short period of time,
Right.
that you're going to be addressing whatever the issue is.
Right.
But long term, can't do it.
So it's basically you want to do it when you can stabilize their like oxygen needs to the point where you can actually wake them up, increase that
Correct.
that demand.
Yes.
And have enough supply to meet said demand because that's the issue, right? With waking people up,
And
is
they
you
have to
increase
be-
the demand through the roof.
And they have to be psychologically, I think, really prepared for this. I think one of the
yeah.
things that we do a
I mean,
poor
you got
job-
tubes coming out of your blood, and this is a lot to take in.
Well,
Like-
I remember COVID, and I remember, how many people we walked around in VV ECMO, and I know that that's not anything new for the medical center. They do that all the time with their transplants. They're patients that they're conditioning for lung transplant or post-lung transplant graft dysfunction that they're trying to get over,
Right.
whatever the case may be. And these people are walking around and going to the, get coffee at the Starbucks, with their ECMO machine. It's kind of crazy, but they do.
Right.
And it's just we don't do very much for their psychology. We don't really, some of these people were just really emotionally under incredible duress.
Right.
And we really don't focus on anybody's mental health. I don't remember
No.
ever seeing a clinical psychologist coming in and offering to talk with any of them for any reason. It just was never even, I didn't even think about it until sometime way later
Yeah.
myself. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder, that might not have been a bad idea.
No, and that's weird because they still don't do it. Like nowadays, they're starting to, I'd like to feel, take, not maybe in the ICU, but in the general medical setting, mental wellness, psychological wellness is being more understood and more accepted, and they're offering more counseling, more this
And
and
if you
that.
have somebody that has an acceptance
Mm-hmm.
and can get some tools to process the reality of their situation,
Sure.
they're going to potentially have a better chance of recovery
Right,
because
absolutely.
they'll have a more positive attitude about
Right.
the situation.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, yeah.
I think anyway.
I believe me, it's been stated that if you're mentally not well, if you're psychologically not well, then your body does suffer. This connection has been proven. Okay? Depression does depress you physically as well. This was proven a long time ago, you know what I mean? So that's the case, a patient needs to want to get better, right, Joe? Like
Yes.
it's very important part of treatment.
Yes.
I mean, if
Or-
they don't want to get better, like your guy who was on the tandem
No, he was
ECMOs,
done.
he was done, right?
He was
Like,
done.
once your mindset gets to that point, then it's, like number one, it's too hard to get them to even like agree to anything that you need to get consent, right? We as doctors or clinical professionals need to get consent for just about anything we do. They won't want to sign. They won't want to move on, So again, down to that doesn't even include physiology. Your physiology, again, like I just stated, is affected. And that has been proven a long time ago. This is not new information. Most people already know this. The regular audience should know this. You don't have to be a clinical professional to know that connection. The regular general layman knows this. But yeah, okay, so moving on. Lung transplants. So lungs are like the drama queens, again, of all the little organs. They hate time, they hate injury, they hate dry weather, they just hate everything. So EVLP, which is like ex vivo lung perfusion, it was a game changer, you know what I mean? So these guys like reconditioned the lungs outside of the body in like this little, it was just funky. I mean, I've never seen it in real life. I haven't had the pleasure of seeing it in real life, but I've seen it enough in pictures just to be like, wow, what the heck are they doing? Like that it's outside the body in this little glass dome. Like, it looks pretty cool, right?
Yeah, well, you got to keep the humidity.
Absolutely, yeah. And so it has to be enclosed.
It's like a terrarium.
Exactly. That's like I said. They don't like dry weather. The lungs need to be moist. It's a big part of maintaining the alveoli. Atelectasis, surface tension. All those fun things that maybe one day I'll teach you guys. Lungs.
Yeah, even their compliance.
Yeah, it's very big. The lungs, you make them dry, they'll just collapse on themselves.
That's why they put humidifiers in the ventilators. We used to not do that. It used to all be dry air.
And then all of a sudden you have massive atelectasis, and you're trying to figure out why. But we're perfused, like we're ventilating. How come it fell apart? So yeah, you get perfusionists. You guys get pulled into that space. You're like lung whisperers now. You again, these all are fun things that stuff we'll be seeing as time goes on. So some emerging technologies. There's a little NRP circuit that I found. It looks very similar to ours, but not quite ours.
No, it's not ours.
Nope, but looks similar to ours. Similar, but not ours. So yeah. You've probably seen like heart in a box machines on the internet or whatever. That's OCS, organ care systems. That's Joe's going to talk about stuff like that. I think is that today? You talking about
today.
OCS,
it's right?
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's the last
NRP, OCS, and things like that, right? So it's like first class for organs. They're warm, they're perfused, they're monitored. Then there's things like xenotransplantation. It's just pig hearts in people, which is a thing too. It's
Thank you.
It's real. It's happening, and it's wild. Pig hearts in people. They're doing it. I don't know enough about it yet to tell you other than they're just doing it. So, ECMOs and VADs in the pipeline. This is your bread and butter as a perfusionist. ECMOs and VADs aren't just bridges; they're like lifelines. I was saying that earlier. You maintain the organs before they're even retrieved. Also, your data, your labs, perfusion parameters, gases, they get sent to the transplant team to kind of help. It helps them to like determine eligibility for organ recipients, or if they're even viable, in the first place. So no pressure, perfusionists. Make sure you get them parameters right. So ethical racial disparities. Here's where we can get uncomfortable. Most people do talk about ethics, talk about race, especially in 2025. Blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans get listed later, referred less, matched poorly. It's not about genes. It's about access, trust, bias, things like that. You can't fix all that, but you can be like a voice in the room, when it matters. It's just the way it is. You can't argue numbers. So pediatric organ availability, little hearts, little lungs, huge headaches, but they're out there, Pediatric donors, they're rare. Matching is tough, and kids often spend like weeks and months on support. In pediatrics, these little kids, what makes it so sad is that they didn't do it to themselves, like Adults, most of the time, we would have done it to ourselves. You know, through poor decisions in diet or poor social habits, whatever the case may be. Most adults, not all, would have done it to themselves through questionable decisions throughout their life. And these are questionable decisions that it's okay to do, you know. I mean, life's life, live it how you want. But kids, most of them are just born this way, you know, and that's I guess what, you know, makes it so sad, you know, is they didn't have a choice. They were just born with a hole inside their heart. They were born with a small left, you know, ventricle, which now requires 3 surgeries, you know. And even then, that may or may not fix the problem. They may still need a transplant. That's an ugly disease, by the way, hypoplastic left heart syndrome. It's ugly. Again, requires you 3 surgeries that are done over the course of many years of your life. But that's the name of the game in peds. It's not for me. Can't do it. Shout out to all pediatric perfusionists. You guys are strong. I don't know how y'all do it, but I couldn't do it. I'm not built that strong. So, future challenges, you know. More old donors, more marginal organs. That's just nothing, you know, more sick recipients. That's kind of the way it is, you know. Fewer simple cases, more complexity. You know, you're going to see things change fast, you know, from cold storage to warm perfusion, from human to human to xenograph. You know, just stay ready. It's about to get exciting, you know. So your role as a perfusionist. So you're no longer just running the pump. You're part of the transplant, you know, continuum. You know, supporting the donor, you know, maintaining viability, protecting the recipient, maybe even perfusing the organs outside of the body someday. You know, be proud. You're not in the background. You know, you're the heart of all of it, literally. You know. So, some closing thoughts on this. You know, this is a system built on hope, heartbreak, logistics. Again, it's not perfect. By no means is it perfect, and it absolutely needs more work, but it's growing. And like all things that grow, you know, changes will come because it forces more people to look at it, because as something gets bigger, you cannot ignore it. You know, you have to change with the times, and that's just what has to happen, you know. But it's your job as a perfusionist, you know, to make the impossible possible. Sadly, that's what they expect us to do, you know, especially like on NRP, you know. You have to bring these organs literally back to life, make them like they were new again. You know, take this beat up organ, give it that new car smell, you know, shine it up, detail it, make it look good, and get it ready for the next guy, you know. So again, transplants, they don't happen without perfusionists, especially what it seems like where we're going, especially in the future too. All right, so you're the bridge, you're the lifeline, you're the constant, and now you know why organs do or don't show up. So there you go. That's all I got on this one. Again, any questions, any comments, you can email us directly at contact, you know, the email Joe provided earlier, or you can email me directly at samirpatel@het.us. I'm not going to say my tagline because I got one more lecture, and then I'll say my tagline after that. And on that, we'll take a 5-minute break. Is that okay, David?
Yeah.
All righty. 5-minute break. All right, and we're back. So, Joe's still away, but you guys got me. And I'm the one giving the lecture anyway, so you're stuck with me regardless. All right, so what are we getting into next? Next, we're going to get into what's the glamorous world of organ procurement. I know. What could be more thrilling than a combination of scalpels, slush, systemic and anticoagulation, possibly some perfusing? I promise, this is going to be practical. I'll try to make it detailed, but not too detailed. Try to make it entertaining like I usually try to do, throw some jokes in there. I like to throw some jokes in there. I learned for those that have seen that heard my biography that I gave personally, I guess my autobiography, if you may. I've learned a lot. I've had my share of teachers, and I made my teaching style based on stuff that I liked. I try not to keep it so monotoned. I do have to get through the boring information from time to time, so that you can't do anything about. I wouldn't be teaching you if I didn't teach you the nitty-gritty of it all also, So, let's move on. So again, the objectives, So, the game plan for this one. So, we're going to understand the bigger picture of how we recover multiple organs without turning the OR into a battlefield. Talk about what you do as perfusionists to preserve organs, because the flush is more than just opening, a clamp. We're going to explore the ways donor management affects the viability of the graft, and finally geek out over some newer technologies. Normothermic regional perfusion, NRP, portable pumps, the good stuff, Hold on. I'm going to give them a second to fix the cameras. We have... Yep, there we go, right there. That looks good.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, that was me. I kicked it.
That was Joe. He kicked it. We're back. Yeah, we're good.
I'm sorry. Had a crisis to deal with.
So, introduction to organ procurement, Organ procurement is not a solo act. In case I haven't made that clear, it's a team sport. Those of you that have got to be involved in this process, you know it. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people involved. I thought, some of these heart rooms had a lot of people until I went into an NRP room, and then I was like, wow, okay, never mind. That's a lot more people. There's so many people in this, man.
We have nobody in the heart room.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You see? And I didn't appreciate that until I started doing NRP. Man, you have so many people sitting around, though. There's people on the sides of the walls and chairs here, there. Oh, my God.
And there's 20 people documenting the same thing.
There is.
It's really amazing, this system.
It's so many more. This is truly a team sport. That might actually understate it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
See, but everyone here, they got either sharp tools, different opinions, pens and papers documenting, as Joe said. There's all kinds of stuff going down.
There's a lot of documenting.
There really is a lot of documenting. For those of y'all that thought we documented a lot in a regular, CPB pump run, you've not seen nothing until you've done an NRP pump run. We're documenting so many more things than that.
I know.
Some of the stuff I'm still trying to figure out. What does this even mean? What is this? I'm still playing the role of figuring out exactly what to document, but it is what it is,
now,
people.
Oh, this is your second lecture?
Yeah, this is my second
so
lecture.
Before you go further into this, if I may, and please forgive me, everyone, I really truly had a minor emergency to deal with, but a question came across while you're giving your lecture, and I want to make sure that I
on the first lecture?
Yes.
Okay.
That I give you the opportunity to answer that first.
Mm-hmm.
I did explain that I would ask, but that Matt would probably be really covering a little bit of this also, but it's a question. You may not have the answer.
Okay.
And it's from Aksh Tyagi. I don't know if I said that correctly. I hope I did. If I did butcher it, I apologize. University of Wisconsin solution or HTK solution, which is best in context of organ preservation, in your opinion? So the University of Wisconsin solution or the HTK solution, or do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, so that's going to be a question. I do address some of this.
Right.
Matt's going to be the one.
Yeah, I was going to say,
So
Matt, we will answer this. You know, Matt would probably
he can answer this question.
Yeah.
And just off the cuff, but I'll also share it with him ahead of time. But tune in tomorrow for the answer to that, although my lecture will cover a little bit of it, but not at that same level.
Right. I am
so
still
sorry.
kind of newer, again, to this game, you know, the organ transplantation game. Loving it. Oh, my God, do I love it. It's, I hope to know more as time progresses.
Yes.
You know.
Well, it's a field.
I'm a seeker of knowledge.
It's kind of like a field of study almost.
It's not one that's taught to you regularly.
No,
you know?
they don't talk about this in school at all.
No, not at all. In med school either. We don't
just
taught
finished.
this. I just
Right.
Finished, never mentioned. Med school, never mentioned. These are not things that, again, unless you are in surgery and you're possibly even a transplant surgeon, this is not something that's regular taught to you, you know?
Right.
And that's okay, because medicine is very compartmentalized.
It is.
It's just
It
the way.
is.
It's the name of the game.
Well, I think that
It's just too broad to know everything.
You know, I mean, back in the day, you know, out on the prairie, you had one doctor that was the doctor, the surgeon, the everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that was it. They just did everything, and they could only do so much.
Right.
But our knowledge, our medical knowledge, every day there are so many new things being understood, and our systems, our biology, our organism is just so incredibly complex, and there's so much of it. Everything we've learned has taught us that we still don't really understand all of it.
Right.
Not even close.
No, not even close.
This is such a mystery.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we just you know, we can only deal. That's why it's good that you stay in your lane, right? Like in medicine, because there's just so many lanes.
Mm-hmm.
If you spread yourself too thin by trying to apply yourself to too many different crafts.
And then you're never really good at one.
Exactly. And the way that, you know, especially with America being such a litigious society, you need to be good at what you're good at.
And that's another issue. Yeah, we'll talk about that another day. I want to talk about I'm going to do it. We're going to do a program on that. But let me let you finish your lecture. I apologize.
All right.
I
You're
keep
okay.
messing your time up, and I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. So as I stated before, you know, we deal mostly with, you know, two different kinds of donors, DCD and DBD. Of course, you've got the living donors, but we're going to concentrate more on these two. So again, your role in all this, it's pretty huge. You know, you're the guardians of the organ quality. If perfusion goes wrong, the recipient center will absolutely call and ask what the heck happened. You don't want to be in the OR break room when that call comes in. You just, you know, perfusion is important, is the general takeaway. If you are involved in it. So donor physiology and optimization. When somebody becomes brain dead, their physiology unravels, kind of like I said before, you know, like a really bad Netflix plot. First, there's a massive sympathetic response, you know, heart races, blood pressure spikes. Then there's a cliff dive after that, you know, the vasodilation, the hypotension, the hormonal collapse. I mean, there's just... It's a hormonal collapse is probably understating it. It is just what happens over the course of the next 15 to 20 minutes. It's cataclysmic inside the body, you know, because of course you're dead, right? ICU teams try to plug all the holes, you know, with vasopressin because ADH stopped working. You know, they give steroids to reduce inflammation, stabilize blood pressure, T3 to kind of keep the heart pumping, and volume management. You know, you don't want them too dry, you don't want them too wet. You know, my whole Goldilocks fluid strategy that, you know, remember, you guys that didn't hear that, you know, check out 100, the second lecture in 100, and you'll hear my Goldilocks fluid strategy about it just being just right. So why do you care? You know, because how that donor is managed before you show up directly affects the organ's ability to work, and you know it, and the amount of preservation solution that it'll also take up. You'll see it. You'll see it in flow resistance, backflush patterns, things like that. So yes, ICU medicine is your business too. So pre-procurement coordination. Now, this is the part where it can get cumbersome for those that are involved. Especially, think of it as the phase as the most complicated dinner reservation ever. Okay, like every surgical team, like wants their turn at the table. Nobody wants to go last. The lung guys want to do their thing if they're involved. Liver wants to go before kidneys. Sometimes kidneys wants to go before liver. It's just a
And there's
yeah,
a lot of fighting going on.
Exactly. I mean, again,
Which is
I haven't
not in the best interest of anybody.
Right. I've only been privy again to not a handful, more than a handful, but a limited number, and I've already seen this a few times. We verify but before anybody gets to cut. We do things. There are things that have to be done. Like we verify ABO, cross-match, infectious markers. You can't take a Hep C organ, right? Like that's not...
Well, that's not exactly true anymore.
Really?
I'm going to talk about that.
Really? Oh, man. You wouldn't think that you would take a Hep C organ, but apparently Joe says we're going to take one.
Yeah, you're going to hear some things here
Wow.
pretty soon. Make you go, what?
Okay.
You what?
What? Well, I am looking forward to that because I didn't think we would take a Hep C organ, but okay. We decide, what's being recovered. That's obviously very important. U.S. perfusionists will have that conversation. Will have that conversation with the surgeon. What are you taking? What type of cannulation are we doing? What do we need to do? It's important, because it'll drive your flow rates, things like that, If you're cannulating abdominally, you can flow less than if you're cannulating thoracically. So, it matters. You're going to be setting up your circuit, checking flushes, calibrating pumps, and possibly being asked to help troubleshoot somebody else's slush machine. And that also happens, So timing is crucial. If one team runs too long, it affects everybody, It's pro tip, never unplug another team's cooler or their vac. If they have a Neptune set up, make sure you ask before you just start plugging stuff in. Like Joe, I know, likes his own Neptune.
I do.
He does.
For
He
this
doesn't-
reason.
Yeah, he doesn't like to borrow off somebody else's.
Because if I lose the vacuum
Yeah.
on my system,
Right.
I'm in trouble.
Exactly.
In a hurry.
So these are all things that you kind of can do before. Figure it out. You obviously don't want to do it after they've been declared. You don't want to be messing around in there at that time. Things kind of got to be done beforehand. Have conversations with your surgeons beforehand. Have conversations with all the staff inside the OR. Figure out the Neptune situation if you're like Joe. Figure out if there is a second Neptune. Even there in the room. If not, I saw Joe wheel one in from the room next door. In one of our cases, he brought in the second Neptune. Told him to go get it.
Yeah, they argued with me.
They did, but they brought it in
And
the
then
end.
and then I got in trouble
Did
for
you?
that too.
Oh no. Well, bottom line is it can be done. You might get in trouble, but he made it happen. That case went swimmingly because we had our own Neptune. The organ, not so much. It ended up not being a usable organ, but that's besides the point. It wasn't us that did that. It's just it was a liver in question, and the ALT, AST scores were just through the roof. I think over 1,000 or something, right, Joe? It was like crazy high, yeah. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously not a usable liver.
No, that was really bad.
Yeah, that one was bad.
That person's liver was toast.
Yeah, that was just
That
toast.
was toast beforehand.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it wasn't us. We brought the lactate down as we were supposed to do. We made it look nicer. It looked on visualization. It looked good.
It did,
We
and
were
it
gonna
was-
we
and
were
it
gonna
was
take
actually
it
soft.
Exactly. We were gonna take it, and then right at the end of the whole procedure, after we clamped out, and they even pushed in the flush.
Yep.
And everything we got, because for those that don't know, those AST ALT results take forever. Even after you draw those labs, they can take anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. Well, that's a lot of time in the OR. So our surgeon, of course, decided to press forward while
Yeah,
waiting for those results because
it
you
was
can't
visually
exactly
and
look good.
palpably
Looked good.
good.
But so sometimes, and that's where that line that I said in the first hour comes from is, what does visually looks good even mean? Like, is that a thing? You know, because this organ looked amazing, but AST, ALT, both over grand. That's obviously, and there's some very serious hepatitis going on in that liver. Okay. So, let's see. Surgical exposure, cannulation. Okay, so once we're in the OR, it's kind of controlled chaos. You know, we open the chest, the abdomen through sternotomy, laparotomies. It's like synchronized swimmers, but with bone saws and a bovie in their hands. Cannulation orders, usually like the aortic cannula for inflow. Nowadays, you know, they're liking to put the eye, especially if you're doing NRP, we're really hoping they put that venous in first. There are the occasional surgeons here or there that like to put the arterial in first. Not fun to do, at least in the one case where he did put it in.
I understand. Well, you know why they do that?
Why? Because I hated that case.
And I really almost hate changing this topic. But
no, it's
basically,
okay.
The way that I was taught and the way that I think accepted best practice is to access the venous,
drain them, right,
and then because that gives you more room,
correct,
especially if you're doing it up in the chest,
right,
because the heart is exploded
right
at that point. But you know the problem with that is that you drain the patient and now you have a flaccid aorta, and some of these guys are really concerned about back walling
right
the cannula, putting it in.
Right.
And so there's a couple that think that, well, let me put it in this aorta because it's nice and big and full and plump, and this is going to be a whole lot easier for me to do. But they do that, and it becomes a bloody mess, and then they can't see, and they're struggling to get the venous in. I just frankly believe that doing the venous first is the most efficient way of doing it, and just, you know, you've got to get better skills at being able to separate the aorta from the collapse to be able to make a small hole and put a cannula in it.
And that happened in our case.
And if
you
they
remember.
would just slow down.
Yeah,
I really think the problem is this concept of time. I really can't wait until Matt's here tomorrow. I'm going to pound this. I'm going to ask him this a lot.
Oh, and bring up the Italy thing with the 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah. Again, you know, in that case that we cannulated the aortic first, the arterial first, sorry, it was exactly like Joe said. There was blood everywhere. Blood that didn't end up going into our reservoir. So we were volume challenged
because
that entire
they
case.
See, and they were using the waste
sucker, right? So it was just going into the Neptune, just thrown away, just.
Yes, I know.
And we needed that volume. I mean, we ended up dropping almost 2 liters of crystalloid just to compensate, if you remember in that case.
And then the hemoglobin's low.
Yeah, the hemoglobin was tragic. Everything was just. All because of, you know, some simple thing that you could have just taken the venous first. We take all that volume back into our reservoir where it's nice and can be used so we can perfuse it right back after they put the atrial or the aortic cannula, you know, in, or the atrial cannula, whichever they are. And then you just give the volume back when you go on. It's so much easier that way. At least every case I've done thus far. I love when they do that. Well, there was just that one surgeon that likes to do that.
When they lose a tremendous amount of blood in the belly, when they're doing belly cannulation, they're doing iliac cannulation or direct vena cava aorta, descending aorta. The blood that gets lost, even if they're using our pump sucker, but they can't keep up.
No, right.
And it spills down into the, you know, through the guts and everything, and it's way down in there. And now you're just trying to get on pump. So you get on pump, and then if they have to try and pull all those organs to the side at that moment to try and find that blood, get it, which they can never do. Right. Because it hides in different places. There's a lot of space in there that just can hide stuff. Yep. And you never really do see it back.
No.
And then, you know, of course, then you get on pump, and now everything that wasn't bleeding is bleeding. Right. And then, you know, it just goes on and on. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
And right, kind of like you said, you're never going to get it back.
Just do the damn venous first.
Yeah, just please, for the love of God. For those that do like they do the arterial first, just look at some of your buddies that do the venous and look how much smoother those cases go. As a person that is on the other side of what you're putting in first, it directly affects what we do. It directly affects the organ viability. Everything. It's direct. We'd rather have blood than have to replace said lost blood with 2 liters of crystalloid and then dilute the patient out and then lose volume to third spacing and this and that and
blood
right and then have to get blood, and it's just what we have to do to fix that is a lot of stuff. So again, there's you could do aortic cannulation, you could do right atrial appendage cannulation, IVC cannulation for outflow, a portal vein, if you're doing livers. So yeah, I mean, cannulation. So what you're thinking, what can go wrong? Cannulation. Let me just tell you right now, cannulation in like NRP organ procurement cases is not like cannulation in cardiopulmonary bypass. It's not happened to me, but a lot of my perfusionists that I worked with, Min, who's been, I think, on the show before, right?
Oh, yeah.
A few others have told me stories about when they first started doing NRP with cannulas flying out and all kinds of crazy stuff. We have surgeons. We have this one surgeon who just told me from the very beginning. It didn't matter what my target flow was. My target flow was 3.3 liters, I think, per minute, because we were abdominal. So it wasn't very high, obviously, because abdominal is only 66% of your full 2.6 flow. But so he was like, I don't want you to go above 2.5. He just flat out told me that.
And you can't do that.
I didn't. I hope he's not watching.
You can't do that.
especially when it came time to pull those blood gases. I sure as hell was not at a 2.5. No. At least 5 minutes before that, I was at like 3.6, 3.7, flowing nice, trying to get that lactic acid down. Lord have mercy, I was not at a 2.5.
Well, it's DO2, man.
Exactly.
It is
It's
DO2. It's DO2. It's
DO2,
DO2, DO2. That's what it is.
And that's because our main job, in NRP is to bring that lactic acid down. It's main number that we look at. We look at other stuff,
Well, think about it. We have excluded the brain.
Right. Yeah, it's clamped out usually.
And if we're doing just abdominal, we've clamped the descending thoracic aorta. So
Correct.
we're perfusing basically, unless you clamp out the iliacs, we're perfusing the legs and the abdominal cavity, the abdominal organs.
Right.
That's all we're perfusing.
Right.
Clamp the iliacs out, you take that away too.
Yeah, then you take the legs away, right?
You take the legs away completely.
Right.
And so, as long as everything is clamped out and you don't have any leakage anywhere, that's pretty simple to just perfuse that one area. But we talked yesterday, I think several times about, or last program it was, I don't remember, where organs talk to each other. So when you just cut the brain out,
Right.
there are a lot of hormonal changes that occur in the vasculature of the kidney, the liver, everything else. And how it responds to things is going to be very different when you exclude the heart, the brain, the lungs, all these other organs, because these organs do communicate with each other.
They do, correct.
And the brain is also pivotal in this.
Right. And that's down to that whole talk between organs we were talking about, which doesn't happen in these crosstalk, right?
Is absolutely happens all the time.
It happens all the time,
and
right?
is necessary,
right?
Because you get some really bizarre pressure. You get severe hypertension and hyperdynamic from an acute brain death.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like I had said a second ago. You have that whole catecholamine surge.
Oh yeah, you just pump it out.
It's just boom. All of a sudden, you're just bathed in norepi, epi, and dopamine. It's just you're bathed in it, and boom, you get severe constriction everywhere. It's just again followed by then a fall off a cliff, which also happens. But
yeah, I don't really think there's a lot of. I'm not sure about this. This is a really good question. I'm going to ask Matt this question tomorrow. I probably should write all my questions down. But I really wonder whether or not you just fundamentally lose your autoregulation in all of the organs that we're trying to recover when you just sit there and exclude the brain from the entire process. If you're doing thoracic and you're doing the heart, or you're doing just the abdominal, you cut everything out except the abdominal. Where's the autoregulation process.
I know a little bit about this. I'm actually going to give a talk on autoregulation, but it is controversial. We don't actually know the answer a lot. So some autoregulation works on reflex. So what we know thus far to be true about reflex is it does not require brain input. It goes just to the spinal cord
Okay.
and back.
Okay.
Okay. In fact, if a reflex had to go all the way up, into your white matter, gray matter, wherever that reflex particularly goes, it would be a little too long. So sometimes it just short rides into the spine, back out, because you have to understand that spinal cord itself is still CNS, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is still CNS. It's not PNS. So is that enough? I don't know. Maybe Matt will know. Is to maintain autoregulation.
That's a really good point. Because I sat there because I believed that it wasn't a reflex completely.
We don't know, Joe. See, that's the thing. That's the funny thing about. But if it is,
then
it would be maintained.
Wouldn't matter.
That wouldn't matter.
I'm going to ask that question tomorrow. It's a really good question.
So it depends on what type of input you need for it. And it's again, see, that's the funny thing about neurology. We just don't know enough about how the brain works yet.
No.
No,
but we're developing artificial intelligence because we think we're so smart we can mimic the brain.
Which we don't even understand.
In a building that is using more electricity than the entire country, the houses in the country use on a given day.
Right. And that's just one company, and we got
all
like 6, 7 of these companies.
All we have to do is eat a Big Mac.
Yeah, that's all.
And drink a Coke.
Absolutely. And maybe a coffee. Stimulate it all.
Absolutely. Nicotine gum.
Could you imagine if we had like coffee for those guys? How much would it take? How much would it take to increase power to get like the equivalent of our coffee into AI?
A lot.
If it's taking this much to be here, what does it take to give that certain boost to go here? You know what I mean?
And we're still
like we do with coffee.
And right now you get AI to here, and if you really think about it, really our brains are in the stratosphere and we're still just here. We're not even as tall as ourselves.
No, right.
Now, everything starts that way. And I do understand that, nobody thought we could fly to the moon.
No.
Nobody thought we could leave Earth's orbit.
Right.
Nobody probably thought we'd ever do heart surgery.
No, right.
I mean, there was a time when somebody believed that if you were to, I forgot the name of the surgeon, Vicky Carlisle has that in one of her lectures too, that if you were to operate on the heart, you would lose the esteem of your colleagues because the heart cannot be operated on. And there was a very famous surgeon who was well respected and well regarded. And here we are talking about taking them out of somebody that was dead, and reviving it, still taking it out, taking it somewhere else and putting it in someone else.
Yeah, possibly across the United States.
So there you go.
So
I could be wrong about the AI.
Right.
I don't think I am though.
No?
No.
All right.
I don't buy into it. I think it's just supercomputing.
So, cardioplegia, heart procurement. Cardioplegia, heart procurement, again, some of you perfusionists know a little bit about this already. You guys are pretty involved on heart transplants and such. Especially nowadays, even in schools, they make sure that you be part of heart transplant procedures, pumping them, being, just knowing about them. So we're a little more versed in that organ, given that's the main thing of what we do, as perfusionists. So after we heparinize, it's a time for a moment of the heart team, has been waiting for. It's kind of what we wait for. Cardioplegia comes next, delivered antegrade through the aortic root, and sometimes retrograde if they have, fancy coronaries that have like lots of collaterals, or if their coronaries are even iffy. Why? How did they die? What happened? Are we going to get the cardioplegia everywhere it needs to go? You'll often hear, do you see the vent draining? Is that heart cool enough?
Does
yes,
it feel soft?
Yeah, because it feels, they'll poke at it. Yeah. I mean, so, then we divide. Okay, aorta, pulmonary artery, SVC, IVC, then the pulmonary veins, usually with generous, like usually they have a generous cuff. You know what I mean? That kind of like, I can't explain how it works. I saw it in a video, but it kind of compresses it and then they clamp it. But yeah, so the heart gets wrapped, in this fancy slush, these solutions that they use to kind of keep them cold and keep them where they need to go, and then hand it off to the next person to treasure. We use this in about all the organs, not just the heart, of course. That's the heart. Again, I kind of kept it brief. You guys are going to know about the heart. And if you don't know, you will know by the time you take your board exam, because I got questions on that. So, lung procurement. Again, lungs are one of the pickiest organs. You don't want to overinflate them. They'll bruise. You don't want to underinflate them. They'll collapse. You touch them too much, they'll sulk, We flush them via the pulmonary artery. Perfidex is the usual date for this dance. You'll suction the bronchial, deflate and reinflate them gently, and then the airway is usually clamped and then stapled. They want to make sure that stays closed. Because again, you need to keep that inflation at a certain place the entire transit ride. God forbid you have an air leak and you end up sending a lung over that's completely collapsed. Whoever's receiving that lung is not going to be happy, okay? So hot tip, the transplant team, they're going to ask, how well the lungs were ventilated. They're going to ask all this. Was there any excess frothiness in the airway? Say yes. You may as well hand them the rejection slip if you do say yes. So again, with the lungs, you have to pay a lot more attention because they're filled with air and air leaks out so much easier than anything else can. It's not like a liquid. Even the smallest, mini micro hole, boom, they're underinflated after a 4-hour trip. Oh, our TV turned off.
What happened?
This
Our
TV's
screen went
off.
blank.
Yeah, are we still on? Oh yeah, we are, right? Okay.
Our screen went blank.
Okay, good. So, liver and abdominal organ procurement. Time to go south. The liver is flushed through the portal vein and the aorta. That's kind of where they get from both sides. You're looking for clear, effluent, and minimal resistance. All right, that's just the way it is. The pancreas is usually removed. Again, it's been taken a few times in some of the cases we've done. Kidneys are typically last. For NRP, we're usually even out of the room before they even start on the kidneys. But they're usually last. Small and mighty. They don't forget. They do take the ureters, so they do clamp out all that too. Always double check the clamp positions if you are required to flush. In the cases that we've done, we don't flush, but in case you are required to flush, there's been instances where misplaced clamp can reroute like the liver flushing completely, directed into the kidneys or something like that, and then you don't want to have to explain that to the kidney team why their kidneys are already filled with flush even before they started or clamped out anything they needed to clamp out. All right. So perfusion specific considerations. So again, here's our spotlight, The organ's life from here is in your hands. As soon as they say go on NRP, go on whatever, start perfusing. We are kind of what is going to keep this organ alive, or even more importantly, we're literally going to bring it back to life because they've already died. Solutions matter, UW is usually viscous like molasses. HTK, which is the one that the person had asked us about before. Again, see, I don't know much about it because I haven't used it much, but it's like wine, Celsior is another one, fancy. That one's a lot more fancier, but you get the idea. So they have lots of different solutions.
You have a slide with all of the solutions on it and their constituents and what
their
makes
ingredients
them,
are,
and what's the advantage.
Perfect.
So it's a really cool slide.
Okay, great. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm probably going to learn a lot from Joe's lecture.
I'm learning a lot from yours.
Again, this is new stuff, guys. Everybody's learning, and we're all in the learning boat. Flow and pressure, again, might be just right. If the organ starts to balloon, that's not, extra preservation. That's a problem. You don't want that to happen. Stretch is never a good thing. God forbid it's a heart. Don't even overstretch the heart. It won't beat. Just try to start it back up. Always measure the efflux. It should be clear again. I said that earlier. Not bloody, not brown. If it looks like Kool-Aid or like iced coffee, like this, you better call somebody. It's not the way it's supposed to look. Again, so remember, organs, they don't like surprises. Surgeons sure as hell don't like surprises. So just stay communicating. As a perfusionist, I don't have to tell you guys, but communication is kind of the name of the game for us. Only because in actuality, we're not technically supposed to make many decisions that the surgeon is not aware of. This is by law. So you need to be communicating. A lot of times they don't want to hear it, like I said briefly last week, so tell anesthesia, but tell somebody. Some MD in the room better know something, okay? We are not allowed to make certain decisions. We are given the ability as by proxy through the MDs in the room.
Yes.
And again, a surgeon, when he's sitting there working on his, proximals, and he doesn't want to, especially if he's working on distals, he doesn't want to hear from you. Like, it's the last time. Don't bother him while he's doing his distal anastomosis during a cabbage. Tell your anesthesiologist. That's a quick way to get yelled at, by the way. Bother a surgeon during important parts.
I never have a problem.
You don't, because you got 46 years, Joe.
I bother them all the time.
God, I'm not going to bother them.
I just do it.
I might around the 10-year mark, maybe around the 5-year mark, start to, be like, hey, you up there.
I do it just to annoy them.
I've noticed. I have noticed.
And I'm good at it.
And you are an expert at it. You're like expert level at that. God, he can really get them upset. And he loves to get them upset, again, like he said, at the most crucial junctures. He could be sitting there working on an LAD with a bad target, and here's Joe over his shoulder just whispering in his ear.
Well, sometimes, it's like they need help. I can help them. I can do this. I can do this too. I know what you need to do.
Yeah. Let me tell you, that target don't look so good. like the surgeon don't know.
Get that little spatula-looking thing and put that in there. That'll work.
So normothermic, hypothermic machine perfusion. We mentioned it a lot. They're the kind of the new way of going. Again, very new science. So it's not something that we're kind of figuring it out as we go. Surgeons are kind of figuring it out as they go. Everybody in the room, I would like to say, is figuring it out as we go. They do hypothermic apparently, Joe. I haven't been privy to actually see a hypothermic yet.
And there's some data that I have too on that. Mm-hmm. So yes.
So yeah, apparently they are doing that. Again, ours has been NRP. The N stands for normothermic. We haven't had to cool any thus far.
But technically we do.
Technically, because we're not warming.
Correct.
Correct.
So you do have some temperature loss.
Right, because we don't have heater coolers assigned to attached to our circuit to maintain that 37 or 36.5.
Some do.
Right.
We don't.
We don't. Correct.
So we're almost using mild hypothermia.
Right.
That's really what we're doing.
Right. Exactly. So we keep our organs warm, oxygenated, pumping. Again, warm is relative. It's not actually warm. You're going to lose temperature because you're in a cold ass OR with no heater cooler connected, unless you got one. Now that's up to you and your program. So in the case of the liver, it's metabolizing bile, it's doing stuff, because it's normothermic. So you're not driving that metabolism down at all, which is good. We want that in what we're trying to accomplish.
You want it to work.
We want it to work. We don't want to slow it down. At least, again, for NRP, what we are trying to accomplish in that, warm works best. You're not going to, that lactic acid isn't going to come down real quick if you're cold. It'll come down. It'll just come down really slow. Transmedics, we've worked with them. Organ OX or Organox, yeah. These devices are common, you know. You'll see the people around. Again, Transmedics, I've had the pleasure of meeting at least 3 or 4 different people that come and work with them. You know, they may be babysitting the organ for 5-6 hours. That's kind of, they're like organ people. They just kind of take them out and transport them around. That's what they do. Their machines, you know, are usually like really temperamental. They beep, they flash. They need refilling at the worst possible times. It's just the way it is. So DCD, again, so this slide is for controlled DCD recovery challenges. DCD is like playing DCD, donation after circulatory death. Again, like I had mentioned earlier, the trickier of the two of, you know, brain death and circulatory death. It's like, you know, playing beat the clock with ischemia. As Joe and me have alluded to, once they declare circulatory death, at least in this country, I wish we did like Italy, but we don't, but things are moving, man. People are, there's at least, that 20 minutes was pretty high stress. Maybe it doesn't need to be the first 20 minutes for us, but it is. You know, after withdrawal life support, we wait for asystole, confirmed death, which requires us to wait even after it stops and you have asystole, you gotta wait another 5 minutes. And then some people, in this controversy arises, where do you declare them dead? Is it the first time it stops? Is it after the 5 minutes? Whatever. But after that happens, everything starts to happen at once. Okay, they clamp, we cannulate, we flush, we do all that fun stuff happens right then and there. Things in this country tend to move really quickly after we know that the patient has actually been declared. Special challenges arrive with location of where the patient is declared. Sometimes they'll be declared in the PACU, and the next thing you know, you've got people running down the hallways with dead patient and into the OR. You have a lot less time to set up. Sometimes it's nice. You're actually in the OR. Those tend to be a little bit more organized. They're already in the OR, and they get declared there. You tend to have a few extra minutes on your hands than you would have had the other way around. You know, so that's usually the time where if you are going to use normothermic regional perfusion NRP, that's when we would do it. They would, like I said, cannulate. We would go on. So we usually perfuse everything except for the brain, whatever we're going to be taking, like Joe had mentioned, with where we would clamp, where they would perfuse. You know, if you're doing abdominal, they'll do abdominal. If they're doing heart, then you'll do heart. It just depends on what you're taking. You're doing lungs, they'll keep it there too. So what's your job? You know what I mean? Is you have to be fast too. You know, preparation is key. We arrive there good 1 hour early, set everything up, have everything ready to go. They like that too when the perfusion is ready. I don't know, for some reason everybody loves it when we're ready. In all the cases I've been in, when we show up and we're ready to go, people are just laid back after that. They're happy. They're like, oh, good. After you've already set up all your lines and have that all ready to go, you got your drop sumps put in, your yankers connected, all the tubing's handed off. It's just, the world just is easier until perfusion has everything set up. Again, just the cases I've been in. So preservation, packing, and transport. This is kind of where the organs become cargo, but classy cargo, you know, like super nice cargo. Triple bag is one way. The inner sterile bag that usually has like a preservation solution. A secondary stable bag on the outside, and then an outer non-sterile bag. That's usually how they do the triple bag technique. You gotta label everything. Again, this is medicine. Labeling is key. It's kind of how we do things. I mean, even as perfusionists, when you draw that neosynephrine vial, you better label it. People get mad when they see syringes full of medicine that don't have a label on it. It's kind of what we do. There's donor IDs. There's organ like cross clamp times. There's solutions that you used. All this kind of has to be on there. You know, you don't label the heart itself, but you got to have plenty of stuff on the bags to tell what it is. So again, if you're going on pump, you're kind of flying co-pilot. You literally are so important during these cases. I can't stress enough that we are what keep these organs looking nice and smelling nice and having that new car smell, especially after we're done with it, especially if you did your job right. And the organ was good from the beginning. Like I said, we had that one liver that didn't turn out so well, but it wasn't our fault. We brought the lactate down. We made it nice. It's just it wasn't good to go from the beginning. Looked nice, just not good on the inside. So again, communication documentation. Why do I stress this? Because people, man, this is a quick way to get in a lot of trouble. And that's the case for regular cardiopulmonary bypass too. That's the thing that these lawyers pick apart is what we write. They're not in the operating room, so they don't know. But what they do know and what they do see and what everybody sees is what you wrote down. So you have to document what happened, whether it was perfect or it was a complete disaster. You would document it. Again, it may not be due to your fault. You may not have anything to do with it, but protect yourself, document it. Especially if it's not your fault, or definitely write it down. That's key. I didn't do this. This is what happened. Things like usually you want to document are like volume of solution, like pressures, flows. Our little flow, like our personal flow charts that we use that I've been on NRP, they don't have like a target flow area like usual pump charts would have, but I like to write my target flow on the top just so people understand that this is where I should have been and that is where I was, so that there's no question. You don't want somebody else to do the math for you. They'll do it, but you'd rather do the math yourself, know where you need to be and be there and document that this is where I needed to be. And I was right there at the exact same place. Any type of resistance troubleshooting, any type of stuff that you encounter, any problems, usually you want to document all that. Again, in these cases, it's not like CPB. CPB, you really practice good documenting. People, especially in today's day and age. And then lastly, you want to make sure that communication, is key. I've already told you guys that is kind of the name of the game in what we do. It's you kind of want to make sure that everybody around you knows what you're doing and you kind of know what they're doing. You need to be paying attention to more than what you're doing. If you do, then it makes your job a lot easier. So again, the emerging techniques, even in this, organ preservation is getting fancier. They're making solutions that are more viable. They're working on them, perfusion systems nowadays are getting integrated with like AI, things like that. I don't personally like them, especially like me and Joe briefly talked about the Spectrum, a quantum pump. Man, it if you connect it to occluders, especially its venous and its arterial line occluders, it'll damn near wean for you. It's crazy. I don't trust it. Wouldn't never do it because, as a perfusionist, that's kind of fun. It's what we do. It's why we get paid to do what we do. Why wouldn't you want to wean? Why would you want something else to wean for you? Why would you want something else to initiate for you? Those are like our two big decision-making times where we really get to shine in what we do. Why wouldn't you want to do it? And if you don't want to do it, do you really want to be a perfusionist? Maybe you should ask yourself that. But again, they're having these even in these perfusion systems. Even using them in organ transplantations. They have portable normothermic perfusions nowadays. Heart, lungs. They're working on more of these portable type of like the ones for lungs. The ones with the domes and all that. Like, it's getting fancy now. Now, the way it's going is you're going to be able to perfuse organs all the way, all the way to the recipient from the donor. We're already close to that in a lot of aspects, but they're working on them for every organ out there. a lot of research being done on that. Can you imagine that? No ischemic time? You know, that's the transplant dream. Like, no ischemic time. That's obviously where they want to be eventually. You know, we're going to try to get there.
I don't think that can happen.
Of course it can.
It cannot happen with
No.
DCD. It's impossible.
No, it cannot, because there's too much of that lag. You know, you got the lag. But again, that's kind of where they want to go. You know what I mean? That's the goal. And with DCD, like we told you, it's not possible. You know, you have, and is it even necessary? You know, that's the whole thing that we're talking about Italy. Maybe you have a little bit of time, maybe you don't, you know. A lot of research going on into that.
And if I can,
yeah.
well, go ahead. Let me.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm almost done anyway.
Yeah,
I think we're at the end anyway.
I'll remember the question.
Okay.
Or I'll remember the thing.
All right. So to wrap this up, organ procurement complex, but super rewarding. You're literally transferring life. Okay. From one person who unfortunate and his life ended, but because of him or her, some other person is getting the opportunity to carry on their lives. This is the ultimate in reward. You know, it's you know, I'm an organ donor. If I'm not using them, God forbid, please. You know, like if I'm not using, God forbid, I get to use them for as long as I can.
Yeah.
But then after I'm done with them, if they're still usable, I would love for somebody else to
Listen,
get
dude,
them.
it's going to take me 3 years of you working here. I'm going to keep you alive for those 3 years to reclaim my investment in you.
Okay.
Okay. So I will keep you alive. I will NRP you while you do the
Well,
piece.
badass. Awake ECMO me.
That's what I'm going to do. I'll put you in there on the case on ECMO.
On ECMO.
I'll give you a good perfusion assistant they can set up for you.
Run it. I run my own ECMO. Like I need more flow. I wonder if I'm qualified to do that.
I don't know. Probably so.
Probably so.
Probably so.
I'm qualified to run an ECMO. Now the question is, can I run my own ECMO? So again, perfusionists are not just bypass people. You know, you guys, Joe will get into it. I'm pretty sure Matt will get into it. But we're broadening our horizons nowadays. We're looking into a lot of other stuff. I feel like, yeah, CPB is kind of what we do, but that's so yesterday's news. We kind of beat that one up.
Yeah.
We have.
You know, and you know, well, let me let you get to your last.
No, okay. So again, whether you're flushing a liver, transporting a lung, doesn't matter. You know, we're helping make transplantation happen. So if anything else, you know, we're cool because we're part of something new and fancy and at the ground floor, like you
Absolutely.
said, you know, that's
Absolutely.
that alone is worth it. So that's all I got. Again, you guys contact us at the PerfWeb contact email that Joe gave us earlier, or there it is right there on the screen at the very bottom. Contact at perfusioneducation.com. You can email me directly, Samir Patel at HETUS. I also will see both emails, so I prefer you go through the perfusion education one. That way we have a good log of which ones, you know. Otherwise, I would have to forward it and whatever. But so again, my usual tagline I like to say at the end of everything: stay curious, stay critical, stay compassionate, and most of all, stay caffeinated.
Yeah, where's mine?
Dude, guys, see, he has been beating me up about this, and I asked him before I went, and he's like, no, I don't want nothing. He was in some really important talk, and I don't even think he heard me, but then I come back.
It wasn't important. I was on a tirade.
That's what he was on a tirade. Sorry,
Yeah, I was on.
So then I come back, and he's like, "Where's mine?" I'm like, "Dude,
I was having a mini tirade.
I literally asked you.
Yeah, so-
I even asked him if he want food too. Like I wasn't even just coffee. I was like, "Do you want anything from McDonald's? Anything?"
So with all of that said, thank you very much for that. So with all of that said, optimally, you would take the donor to where the recipient is, or the recipient to where the donor is.
Correct. That would be nice.
Yeah, like you'd
Yeah.
have to take, but you'd have to take all of them. Like you can't, like, unless you're just taking one organ.
Yeah, like
Right.
they do in
But
living
you got-
donors.
but you got
Living
two-
donors, they usually got
Right.
them right next to each other, right?
Right, except that in this case, you're going to take heart, lung, liver, kidneys. You got 2 kidneys, and
Right.
each recipient's going to get 1. So you would have to get 5 patients in
Right.
the one place. And
Right.
here's where this gets really weird, because then you would be controlling ischemic time entirely.
Right. Correct.
But the problem with
Which
that
would be
is-
amazing.
you bring all those people there, and the organs are of not suitable.
Exactly. Like you visualize,
We
or you
simply
do.
don't know. The problem is that all the testing that we do, we don't know if the organ is really going to be functional and suitable for transplant
Correct.
until after
Right.
we've done the NRP process.
Exactly.
And it's easier to send 5 surgical teams
Correct.
and take the organs and go to their respective locations than it is to bring all those people.
Right.
Because then you would have to also bring the transplant team because they're somebody's patients
Right.
in their system. And now you have all this economy associated with it. And it gets just incredibly complex and it's really challenging.
Yeah, that's the whole. Again, see, you can't get by that. The red tape that is all the other stuff, right? Like
There's a lot.
There's a lot of red tape, right?
And a lot of money.
Money brings red tape.
The amount of money
in the
we're-
general sense, in this country,
Man.
the more money involved, the more red tape involved. The
This-
more regulated, the more and maybe rightfully so. Money also leads to crazy things happening if you don't regulate it, especially this amount of money.
And that's
they say
also-
one kidney costs how much? $40,000, $50,000.
I think it's 25 each.
25 now. Okay.
25,000 each.
Yeah,
I think
so
that's right.
that's a kidney. Those are like
Livers are high.
Yeah, livers
Heart's
are high,
Really high.
right, yeah.
Lungs are really high.
yeah,
Pancreases aren't too bad. Intestines aren't too bad.
sure. See,
But yeah, the overall amount of money that so they're paying for this process,
Right.
NRP process, and it's really interesting because and Matt can explain this really well, but if they're doing the heart,
right,
so they're going to take heart, lung, liver. Let's say they're going to take heart, liver, kidneys.
right,
The people taking the heart are going to bring their own NRP team,
right,
and that NRP team is the heart transplant side of this is who's going to pay
right.
for that NRP.
Correct.
And right now they don't have a mechanism in place to divide the payment up.
Of course
so
they don't.
the liver and the kidney guys
Right.
or gals, whatever the team, are standing there waiting, and they're like, "Oh, good. I mean, look, we're going to get these organs, and we don't have to pay a penny
Right.
for the NRP. All of that came from these other guys,
Right.
and that's starting to create some problems within the OPOs and
Correct.
all of these different entities that are involved in this, and how the organs are paid for. Really, it's quite a laborious, it's quite a lengthy process. It's not just we did the service
No.
here and give us our money.
Right.
There's a lot
There's a lot of stuff involved
and a lot
more.
of different people.
Right.
So that was really good. I thought that was an excellent lecture, Doc. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.
Very good job. So I'm going to go ahead and if I can, I'm going to go ahead and start mine.
Okay.
My, oh, okay. You want to turn it, like take it out, off?
Should I
Like,
turn mine
get rid
off,
of it?
David?
I don't know what stop and restart means, so I just closed it. Okay. That's not the one I want, though. I want my PowerPoint. Let's see. There it is. Sorry for the delay, guys. All right, let's try that. How's that? Worked? Okay. All right. I don't see it, though. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
All right, so I'm going to talk about OCS, and basically just means organ care system. And there's a whole variety of these things that exist. But I want to go over the need for this first. I'm just going to start reading some things. This is a statement that I thought was very important. And since the 1960s, SCS, which is static cold storage, has gradually become the gold standard method for organ preservation. Static cold storage involves flushing the procured organ with preservation solution at a temperature of 0 to 4 degrees C, then immersing it into a preservation solution at that same temperature until transplantation. The hypothermic environment is responsible for decreasing cellular metabolism, and the preservation solution reduces cellular metabolism and provides cytoprotection. The limitation to this is time, and that's really just one limitation. One of the other limitations is that we take a standard igloo ice chest.
It was in one of my pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have ice in it.
Right.
The organ is in this solution in a plastic bag, kind of sealed up sterilely, and then it's placed inside there. So you don't have a very uniform way of keeping it cool, because ice is an exothermic reaction.
Right.
And so you can get localized burning from too much cold.
Right.
And you can get also not global uniform cooling, just because of the nature of ice and the environment that it's in.
Right. It gets only at the contact points of where it touches. It gets
Mostly,
cold morally there.
and too cold.
Yeah, too cold.
So it hurts it there,
Right.
and hurts it somewhere else.
Right.
But it's been the gold. It is the gold standard.
Yeah.
At this point in time.
Yeah,
Been
too cold.
being
Think
done
like
that
dry ice,
forever.
people. You know, like how it can burn you if you touch it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in the Annals of Thoracic Surgery, these folks out of Mass General, and working with these folks out of Vienna, Austria, for most of the last almost 60 years of heart transplantation, static ice storage, and please forgive me for reading, but that's what I need to do, has been the dominant means of organ preservation. The method has allowed about 4 hours of relatively safe cold ischemic time. And there's your limitation. We're going to talk about that a lot. This 4 hour, and we're talking heart.
Yeah, that's just for
liver,
hearts.
kidneys,
a little longer.
pancreas, lungs. These are all very
Yeah.
different. And for me to kind of try to go over every single organ preservation system would be really time. It's not manageable with the time that we have. So we're keeping this somewhat limited to the heart for today, if you don't mind. But after that time, there's serious risk of graft dysfunction, and that it increases exponentially. This limitation governed by our allocation system and limited our ability, our ability to explore remote and extended criteria donors, meaning far away from where you are. That's what they mean. Or in locations without easy access to aircraft or even helicopter, or whatever the case may be. Static controlled hypothermia was recently introduced into clinical practice, and accumulating data demonstrates superior results with preservation when compared to ice storage. I'm going to show you this device, and it's from, I always say the name of this company wrong, but it's a company you're going to hear a lot, Paragonics. You're going to hear this in my lecture a lot today. So I'll go back to this now. This has allowed centers to increasingly consider remote and extended criteria donors. Herein, we review the available data within the Global Utilization and Registry database, known as the Guardian Heart Registry, to look at improved heart preservation, supporting the expanding use of controlled static preservation. And this is that Paragonics that I'm talking about. So, heart transplantation remains the gold standard for the treatment of advanced heart failure.
Right,
Advancements in the medical care of end-stage heart failure patients, as well as improvements in mechanical support systems, have led to a growing population of potential heart transplant recipients. The number of Americans with heart failure is predicted to exceed 8 million by 2030. That's only 5 years from now. The number of heart failure patients, right? Yeah, I don't know if you know this or not. You might know this. You probably do. Heart failure costs Medicare every year 26 point something billion dollars for that one disease state in this country.
It's an expensive disease. All the stuff for it is super expensive.
It's crazy.
We were talking about the Impella cost last time, remember? I mean, just opening up one Impella, which they do so readily.
$70,000
yeah, just
for a 5.5.
And we were arguing about the price, and they just open it up like it's not even a thing, you know, nowadays.
Exactly.
And boom, 70,000 just like that. Just to unload a little bit, you know, and
absolutely
for a short period of time.
So although the rate of transplants has been increasing in years, the potential candidates on the wait list far exceed the number of available hearts. And this is true for lungs, liver, kidneys, everything else. In the United States, changes to the organ allocation system made in October 2018, so fairly recently, by UNOS, you've heard about that,
Yep,
were
I mentioned
implemented
that.
to improve access to donor hearts for those with the most urgent need and have led to an improvement in the waitlist mortality by prioritizing patient acuity across a broader geographic area. However, this has come at a cost of increasing travel distances and ischemic times. Furthermore, the rate of transplants remains limited by donor organ availability. Strategies to increase the donor pool have included the use of Hep C positive donors.
I can't believe that.
And, yep,
That's an ugly disease, Joe.
yeah, I understand that.
And an
but
expensive disease.
but it is treatable. And
Again,
it is
expensive.
Not as expensive as
No,
not having a liver.
That's a good point.
You know, that's the thing.
Right.
You know, so
But those Hep C medicines are not a joke in cost. I mean,
they may not be, but when you
Right.
compare it to the cost of how about spending
Yeah.
$110,000 for a liver,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
And so what, you know, I mean, maybe those costs of those particular medications, those antiviral medications for the Hep C should perhaps be reduced in price.
Oh Lord, there's a lot of stuff going on about that. They
You
are
know?
way overpriced.
They are. So strategies to increase the donor pool have included the use, we talked about that, and donors and using expanded criteria and donors after circulatory death. That's NRP. So there's DBD, we talked about that, brain dead donors, so donation after brain death. And then there's DCD, which is what we're talking about here, which is donation after circulatory or
death.
cardiac death.
Correct.
And of course, in the DBD patients, the patient himself or herself is the NRP.
Right.
Because their heart, everything is working.
Yeah, just
They're just brain dead.
yeah, they just don't have any EEG waves.
Right. But
Right.
there's a huge number of people in the world that do not meet brain death criteria, but are absolutely
Brain
not recoverable.
That's where they put them into that coma category, which has a lot of gray area.
That has a lot. I
You know,
agree.
That's like.
I agree.
At what point are they not comatose and just brain dead?
Exactly. So let me finish this. It is
Yeah.
generally understood that heart transplant outcomes are impacted by both donor and recipient characteristics, many of which cannot be directly controlled. What can be controlled are the procurement and operative techniques used. Since the first heart transplant more than 50 years ago, which was done by Christian Barnard in South Africa,
It was.
and
Correct.
I named my son Christian after him.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
Dude,
know
I
that.
was really into that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the Baby Faye incident. All of my interest in medicine, all of my interest in this field has come from
The pioneers
those
of the field.
two. Yeah, yeah. And having met Cooley, you know, I mean, probably one of the coolest times of my life.
Plus, his name is just cool, Denton Cooley. That's
He's
a
just cool.
Cool
Yeah,
name.
Cool Cooley.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's like
And him and Christian, there's a picture of him and Christian Barnard water skiing in the French Riviera. And I was thinking to myself, I know these fellas tore this town up. I know these fellas tore this town up. No question about it. Since the first heart transplant, advances have made an operative technique, preservation solutions, post-transplant patient management, and immunosuppression. Of course, we know that's a very big deal.
Huge.
However, less attention has been focused on graft preservation. Historically, standard donor heart preservation has relied on a cold flush followed by submersion in an ice-cold or ice-cooled preservation solution and transport in a picnic-type cooler packed with ice.
It is a picnic type cooler. It's not even fancy. You think it would be fancy.
This technique has provided approximately 4 hours of safe preservation, after which the risk of organ dysfunction increases exponentially. The use of ice to store the transport organs results in uneven cooling, I discussed that, and exposure to freezing temperatures, which is also bad.
Bad, correct.
Which can lead to damage to the myocardial tissue and cardiac conduction systems. Hendry and colleagues studied the effect of ice-cold storage on canine hearts and found that when the hearts were packed in an ice cooler, rapid cooling was achieved, which resulted in myocardial temperatures dropping to under 2 degrees C within 1 hour. After 4 hours, the myocardial tissue dropped below zero. They used serial electron microscopy to reveal consequent changes to the cellular edema, nuclear swelling, and mitochondrial calcium deposits, which started when the tissue reached 2 degrees. With increasing severity over time, more recently, However, there has been growing appreciation that temperatures below 4 degrees C provided suboptimal preservation, as extreme cold inhibits metabolic process and mitochondrial function, which might be protective to some extent during periods of static preservation. And they are 100% correct.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I think
agree.
intuitively
that.
this just all makes a lot of sense.
It does.
So why do we do it that way? So they came up with this device, and again, this is the Paradonix.
See, now this looks like a
And
fancy device.
It is a very fancy
I
device.
mean, wow, like look at
And
that.
it basically it controls everything. And what is so cool about this device is that it isolates the heart from contact of anything that would touch it that's of improper temperature,
Which is great.
right? And so it's not direct.
Right. Which is
And-
funny because we do like cryoablations, you know what I
Correct.
mean? Which is direct cold contact.
Correct.
To stop AFibs and stuff
Correct.
like that, right?
To
like,
burn
to burn
lesions.
Right.
Right.
To
Because-
burn aberrant bundles that
Right.
are causing whatever, right?
Because
Like,
electricity cannot conduct across a scar.
exactly.
That's how we do it. That's how we fix atrial
So who's
fibrillation.
to say that, you know, that clearly proves your point that too cold in a one direct region is never a good thing, right?
Or just,
Like,
just too cold, period.
Period,
That's
correct,
why human
correct.
beings cannot be frozen and brought back to life.
Right.
It will not work. I don't cryo freezing. Do it however you want to do it. Do it like they do the crabs on the boats when they
Right.
bring them in. You know, when they
Right.
run them through that the nitrogen
Yeah,
freezer.
that's not gonna work.
And it instantly freezes. That they cook it and then instantly freeze it, and they send it off to the store for sold to you. But this is a really neat device that the heart sits in, totally isolated. The temperature is controlled very precisely. And it even goes so far as to be able to tell you where in the world it is. It's
Oh, it's got
Bluetooth.
GPS and
It's
Bluetooth?
GPS and enabled, Wi-Fi enabled, or a satellite, whatever, however it does it.
Right.
But if you're on a smartphone somewhere, I guess they're all smart now. But
Yeah.
if you're on a device, handheld device, you can tell I'm old. Yeah, smartphone. You can see exactly where it is, but you can
Right.
also see what the temperature is
oh wow.
and a whole variety of other things. In fact, I'm going to get into it a little bit further. So
Oh, cool.
let me
Yeah,
continue to show
yeah.
you these slides.
Oh.
And what they found with this ice versus Sherpa pack, and Sherpa pack is just this Paradonix. Okay, it's just
Is that what it's called?
Their name, yeah. Sherpa
Oh,
pack
what an
is
appropriate
what it's
name.
called. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of strange.
Yeah.
But you can see here you have a 26% reduction in need for mechanical circulatory support post-transplant. Because you know that a lot of times we do these transplants and these patients come out on ECMO,
Right.
Because their heart is just it's weak. Now it could recover, but they're going to need some support. You can't
Right.
just beat these
And
new
some
hearts
time,
with a
yeah.
bunch of with a bunch of pharmacologic
Agents,
You know, it's
right.
going to hurt it.
Right.
Also, then a 36% reduction in new ECMO VAD post-transplant, 13% reduction in primary graft dysfunction,
Oh wow.
50% reduction in severe primary graft dysfunction, and a 48% reduction in 1-year mortality for these patients. I frankly find all of these numbers to be compelling
Absolutely.
in my view, and that if you are going to use cold storage, even if it is post NRP, you should be doing this. You should be using this device and not the old style ice chest.
in them, yeah.
Maybe if
The
you're
igloos.
just going to go down the street,
Right.
I can accept it.
Yeah.
But
not
not
if you're
for a 3.5-hour trip.
correct. Not if you're
Okay.
even trying to sit on like some type of mode of transportation, like a plane or a train or anything like
Right,
that.
planes, trains, and automobiles.
Right.
Here again, we see, I think that's the exact same slide. So, what's our problem? Our problem is time. So, if you're in Nashville and you have a patient there that has a heart that is a perfect match for somebody in Las Vegas or vice versa, and you have a 4-hour window and you're 1,600 miles away. So let's first consider 500-mile air travel. So 500 miles an hour, in 3 hours, you're going to get 1,500 miles at cruising speed.
Right.
Okay, but you got to account for takeoff and landing. So we're going to say 3.5 hours
To get there.
to get there.
Sure.
So now you have 30 minutes
Yeah.
of wiggle room to explant the heart, put it in whatever you're going to put it into, and then take it to where you're taking it to, get off the plane, get on an ambulance, get it to the hospital, and get it transplanted into the patient in 4 hours. It's going to be really hard to do.
It sounds virtually impossible.
It probably is.
Yeah.
Now,
Because you got to be perfusing that heart in 4 hours, not just into like
Correct.
the OR in 4 hours.
No, it has to be
It's
re-
gotta.
it has
It's
to be
got to be
re-
reanastomosed. Blood's got to be flowing. Like,
so it's not going to happen.
yeah.
You might get away with it, San Antonio, Minneapolis, but you're going to be on the edge.
Right.
You darn sure aren't going to get it from Honolulu
Oh,
to
no.
anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely
Or
not.
from anywhere to Honolulu.
Yeah.
Not like that.
Or any Alaskan city.
No,
Right,
and this
yeah.
correct, and this is the fundamental issue with any cold storage device.
Correct.
Is time.
Right.
That window is there, and
Right.
it's 4 hours.
Right.
And if you can do it in 2, you're better off. If it takes you the entire 4, don't be surprised if you need some mechanical support post-operatively. You might need it, but if you can, the shorter the ischemic time, the better. So this slide actually comes from Transmedics. I downloaded it off of one of their links. They have some resources
I
online.
mean, even to get it
And
to
we're gonna talk about
Minneapolis
this.
is impressive.
Absolutely,
We were
yeah.
getting hearts in TMC from Dallas, and they would barely get there in time.
Yeah.
We would stroll in like at the 3 hour, 45-minute mark, 3 hours, 50 minutes where we're reperfusing, and that's just coming from Dallas.
Yeah.
Like, or San Antonio, or not even far.
Yeah, because you have typical problems that everybody has. Traffic.
Correct. Especially if you're going in the med center.
And what's really interesting is that all of these things like that have to be factored into this decision. The decision to go or not go, or when to go or not to go,
Right.
is predicated on a whole host of questions that have to be answered about what is going to be the fastest way with the least amount of traffic, risk of delays, all
Right.
of these things in order to do this procedure. And that's why you find most of these things are done in the middle of the night.
Right. Because it's a good, and that makes sense. Right. You don't have to worry. You miss so many factors at night that
Right.
would
This
happen in the
This is the
daytime.
reality. So in this particular article, it's a review article, and it talks about organ care systems. I'm going to show you all something I think you're going to find very, very interesting. But this was published in 2018, and it's out of a pharmacology journal, which I thought was quite interesting. But here's the reference for it here. So again, I'm going to do some reading. I hope you don't mind, but this is, I can't remember all of this stuff. But this is a past story of organ perfusion and preservation. Primitive concepts underwent a number of modifications over decades of scientific exploration to arrive at current practices in organ perfusion and preservation. It is essential to understand that history to be able to evaluate the further direction of this field of research. Organ preservation developed from the primitive concept of extracorporeal circulation, which first emerged in 1812.
What?
Okay, in the monography of Caesar Julien Jean Le Gallot. He speculated that if the place of the heart could be supplied by injection, and if for the regular continuance of this injection, there could be furnished a quantity of arterial blood, whether natural or artificially formed, supposing such a formation possible, then life might be indefinitely maintained in any portion. And now that shows how incredibly forward-thinking they were, but it also reveals the naivete that they had, because to even postulate that life might be indefinite with this mechanical artificial
Right.
device
Right.
is really missing kind of a
Right.
lot of points. But this is 1812.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Okay.
Cut them some slack, Joe. That was a long time ago.
No slack for anybody. I'm
No
sorry.
slack.
In 1849, German scientist Carl Edward Lobel described in his dissertation inaugurals the first perfusion experiments on isolated pig kidneys. He observed that the bright red arterial blood perfused through the porcine kidneys became dark and viscous because the kidney was working.
Correct.
So it was extracting the oxygen and it was producing urine.
Right.
And that's why it looked like that. And for those of you who don't know this, does anybody, if you go into any dialysis clinic you want to, any dialysis unit in your hospital, and you look at the dialyzer, it's red on the in, color-coded, and blue on the out.
On the out.
And of course, us in perfusion, this makes no sense to us.
No.
Blue, we turn blue blood red. That's
Right.
what we do.
That is what we do.
right?
Right.
That's like the fundamental of
Yeah,
what we do.
They do the opposite.
So why is it red and blue reversed? The reason for that is when you have a higher hematocrit at the same oxygen saturation, your color will appear either brighter or darker.
Or darker.
So if you have venous blood that looks arterial, maybe the first thing to do is check the hemoglobin. Check your crit, because if your crit's 4, 3, you could have a saturation of 60% and it's going to look bright red.
Right.
Because your hemoglobin is so incredibly low.
Right.
So you have to always remember that. You can't always just go by color.
No.
You have to really understand all of the things that are affecting that before you
Correct.
can make that determination. So it worked, okay? In 1885, Max von Frey and Max Gruber constructed the first closed artificial circulation system, which shares many similarities to today's organ perfusion systems. This is in 1885. This is before electricity, okay? I mean, think about it.
Yeah, that's.
There were some smart people.
Yeah.
I don't know if we make him this smart anymore. I guess Musk.
No.
He's pretty
The
smart.
sad part is back then they would have called him crazy.
They probably did.
Yeah.
In 1895, Jacob, I'm assuming the second J is silent, created a double circulation apparatus which used an isolated lung as an oxygenator and permitted organ perfusion for several hours. These early studies led to the development of extracorporeal membrane oxygenation and the subsequent development of perfusion systems for organ preservation vis-a-vis the transmedics or the organox or NRP. Okay, depending on which direction you're going to take this.
Right.
Okay. Here's that slide with the constituents, the fluids. So I will say this. I fundamentally believe that all of these systems, now, transmedics and organox, which I'm going to show you the transmedics data and their system, but these two companies are going to compete against each other. They are in the temperature-controlled, perfusing the organ during transport,
Right.
to essentially maintain its physiology,
Correct.
and extend the distance
That we can take it.
that they can take it.
Right.
And it does that.
Yeah.
And it does that
Yeah,
well.
Yeah.
The downside to that is it is extremely expensive. One,
Yep.
you think Hep C drugs are expensive. No,
Yeah.
this is expensive.
Really.
And it is very complex to operate. It's not at all simple. And if you're not going past your 4 hours, or you're going, let's say, 3 to 3.5 hours is going to be your max, maybe even 2.5 to 3. It really need, and the
Right.
outcomes may not even be as good
Right. Then if
as
you would've-
NRP.
Right.
So I believe what I'm learning from this, at least in this experience that I'm having, is that both techniques are needed, and both techniques have value.
Right.
One is not necessarily superior to the other, but they're different.
Right. They have different indications.
And yes, and
Right.
in some ways, for example, if you're 6 hours away, you can do NRP all you want. You're
Then-
still 6 hours away.
Yeah.
That organ's not going to make it.
Right. Exactly.
So NRP, transmedics will make it the 6 hours.
Right.
But they also have a clock, except on the livers. The livers they can keep for a couple of days. It's really impressive. But we're
Yeah.
just dealing with hearts.
Again,
Kidneys,
regenerative, you know, it's
yeah,
a
it's
little
really
very, yeah.
incredible. That organ is incredible.
Yeah, it's
But anyway,
incredible.
let's go through this. Nevertheless, I think that I want to make sure that I'm clear here. I don't have a dog in the hunt. I think NRP is an excellent tool. I hope it continues. I'd like to see it continue to be developed. I'd like to see it continue to be refined to the point where it's really good. And I think that will be a standard for local regional cases. And I
Correct.
think that transmedics and organocs will both continue to grow in their respective areas and be more focused on
Out of
retrieving
state.
those outliers that we
yeah.
can't reach.
Right.
So here's some of that solution you were talking about. Now,
Yeah,
I don't
excited to see
see the one he was talking
Wisconsin?
about from Wisconsin, unless
Yeah,
that's
I don't-
UW. I'll bet that's it.
Yeah,
UW. So I don't know
University of
that.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, I don't know the solution. But if you look here, you can see that. So let's just compare those. For potassium, you have 125 there. With the HTK, it's only 10. And there's quite a bit of argument about whether you should be using high potassium, low sodium, or you should be using high sodium, low potassium. It's really kind of an interesting thing. But that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother talk.
Right.
But looking at the sodium, you see here 25 versus 15. Chloride, calcium. There's no calcium in the Wisconsin. There is calcium in the HTK. There's 5 of mag versus 4 of mag. I don't see that as very different. Colloid usage. I can't really understand that, but they're using something instead of albumin. I don't really understand. I don't know these colloids, and mannitol isn't a colloid, it's an osmotic agent, so
It
it's
is
not
an
colloidal.
osmotic, correct.
So I don't really know why that's on there, to be honest with you. I don't quite understand it. Buffer.
Probably because it's it's heavy. I mean,
Yeah,
even
buffer is-
mannitol's still heavy.
It is. Phosphate or histidine with that. Antioxidant, the UW is using glutathione and allopurinol, and the HTK is mannitol, tryptophan, and ketoglutarate. I guess that's ketoglutarate.
Yeah, probably so.
And then amino acids, none in the UW, and you've got histidine or tryptophan in the HTK. So it looks like the HTK has a little more stuff in it.
Correct.
But you know that, and then there's a sulfate in the one in the UW, which is sulfate adenosine, whereas you don't have that in the HTK.
So it doesn't have anything for energy?
No, it doesn't look like it.
Oh,
well, no,
that's-
it has energy. It
Okay.
has the I think
can't
the
see it.
the tryptophan.
Tryptophan, okay, yeah.
and the
okay.
ketoglutarate.
And the ketoglutarate, yeah. Okay.
that'll
Yeah,
work.
you did say that.
Yeah, those
Okay.
are going to be your
Yeah.
antioxidant, but also your. I think that's going to be your
ATPs.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So there's
needs
those
something for ATP.
solutions, Akash. I'm going to ask Matt tomorrow to kind of go over this again for you
Right.
and really discuss those issues. Here we look at the metabolic rate reduction with decrease in temperature in humans. And you could see that your metabolism, which is intuitive, is going to go from 100% at normothermia. And then by the time you're down here at the 8 degrees, 4 degree mark, you can see that you're somewhere around 10 or less than 20% of your basal metabolic requirement.
Right.
And each organ is going to have this is human body. This is total body. Each organ will have its own kind of graph like this.
Correct.
For its metabolic, basal metabolic rates.
I mean, they got that whole Q10, Q7 theory, right? Like the drop the 10 degrees,
Yes.
50% loss,
Well,
which has now changed to 7 degrees.
Well, it's 7% per
degree.
7% reduction in metabolic demand for each 1 degree
Celsius,
reduction
correct.
in Celsius
You're right.
temperature.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you can extrapolate from that that it's 7%. So if I drop my temperature by 10 degrees, I'm gonna or let's say less than that. Let's say I go from 37 to 30. That's seven degrees. That's going to reduce my patient's metabolic demand by 49%.
Right.
It is not.
Right.
It is not. In fact,
Because there's other factors.
Let's go to this. 30. I said 30. 37. Here's 30. 37. And I said to 30. So here's 30 degrees. Here's the 30-degree mark. Right about. This is 32. That's going down right about here because that's 28. So I'll say this is 30. You agree?
Yep.
So let's come up.
It is pretty close to 50.
I may be wrong. Well,
is,
you know what? It's
it
actually
is.
less.
Yeah, it's a little less.
Okay, well, so much for my theory. So you can extrapolate that, which is what I meant to say to start with.
There you go.
Whatever.
Hey,
Biological process induced
a lot of literature that supports that theory, Joe.
reperfusion that may lead to primary graft dysfunction, inflammation, no reflow phenomenon, or nitrous oxide reflow phenomenon, transcriptional reprogramming, you have vascular leakage, energy deficit, cell death. This is ischemic reperfusion now, and then primary graft dysfunction as a result of that. So they're going to look at this, and they're going to say, okay, the potential use of normothermic machine perfusion, you keep the physiological metabolism, you can assess the organs, supply oxygen nutrients, organ regeneration, remove metabolic waste, organ immunomodulation, prevent ischemia, reperfusion injury, and organ repair. Because reperfusion injury is a huge problem. When you take any tissue, you take any tissue and you starve it of its oxygen, and then you reintroduce that oxygen to that now ischemic tissue,
it's going to be.
You are going to generate massive amounts of reactive oxygen species, oxygen-free radicals. You're going to get superoxide peroxidase, basically turning the inside of your cytoplasm to hydrogen peroxide.
Exactly.
And it's going to foam out, and your cells are just going to die. And this is one of the problems that you have whenever you're confronted with a patient who is having an MI.
Yeah.
If you take that patient to the operating room and immediately revascularize that patient without letting them cool off, you're going to be on ECMO and they're going to die. So you don't do that, ever. So in conclusion, since the very first speculation on organ preservation made by Cesar Julian, I'm not going to say the whole name, over 2 centuries ago, tremendous progress has been made in the field of research. In the early days, organs were perfused with the blood at physiological temperatures. The introduction of static cold storage in the 1960s, been a long time, revolutionized organ preservation. From then on, it became a standard practice to statically preserve organs at hypothermic temperatures. With the recent demand to expand organ donor pool, because remember, more people die on the transplant list waiting for an organ that get transplanted.
Exactly.
So it's a real mismatch there that we need to take into consideration. With the recent demand to expand organ donor pool, the current accepted status of organ preservation is seeing a retrospective shift from SCS to theories inspired by these early techniques of these machines, as these techniques provide great potential for improved graft preservation, viability assessment, and most importantly, repair and regeneration.
Right.
The success of organ preservation with dynamic machine perfusion operating on the basis of blood-based perfusates at close to physiologic temperatures has prompted further in-depth studies on organ preservation and reconditioning. The need to prolong ex vivo machine perfusion time, that means the organ out of the body in some other device, a box, on a machine. That is ex vivo and a machine. Because obviously ECMO is in vivo.
In vivo, correct.
Right? requires the optimization of current perfusates and the addition of essential components to meet metabolic needs. Prolonged ex vivo machine perfusion opens a door for organ repair and reprogramming, warranting further investigation of novel strategies to improve donor graft quality prior to transplantation. So what they're saying here essentially is they believe that over time, these machines will be able to better mimic what the organ, whatever the organ is, really needs as far as their substrate is concerned, their antioxidants are concerned, their whatever, to help them regenerate or become even healthier than maybe they were when they were first explanted, and then have them essentially conditioned for transplant. And that would be the ideal. We are not there yet.
No, absolutely
Now, I'm
not.
going to show you guys a video. This video is disturbing at best. But I want you to, there is sound, so make sure the sound is working if you don't mind. But this is from one of our ECMO courses, and I want to show you just how incredibly ingenious, in almost a disturbing way, some people are. And this is before World War II.
Yeah, you can already tell. Russians, revival, this is gonna go fun.
Rukaneko. I don't know how to say the name, it's close. 1940.
1940, Moscow, wow.
So this is just before the German invasion.
I should like to tell you that I have seen some of the experiments shown in this film actually carried out at the All-Russian Physiological Congress. As you can imagine, technique is everything. Besides such work as you are about to see, Ryukonenko shares the credit for the methods of human blood transfusion, which were first developed in the Soviet Union and are now practiced in this country, which have saved so many lives during the war. What enabled Soviet scientists to solve this problem? Long ago, science established the fact that animal organs and tissues isolated from the whole organism can be maintained in a living state. But in order to achieve this, special artificial conditions must be created. Isolated organs can be brought to life even though they've been removed from the animal's corpse some time after death.
So there's a heart.
Yeah.
There's a dog's heart.
And they're keeping it moist.
It can function as well in artificial conditions as in a living organism. And for this purpose, blood is introduced into the cardiac vessels. The isolated heart beats just as it did a few hours previously in the living dog.
It's a really thick left anterior descending, isn't it?
It's a big, that's a big artery.
That's a big LED. Wow.
I guess dogs have big LEDs.
Yeah.
The following experiment is conducted on lungs taken from an animal. Bellows distend the lungs and fill them with air.
I mean, just look at the rudimentary aspect of this.
They call lungs balloons. They literally are balloons. Look at that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, those lungs are not going to last long.
no.
I can assure you
Blood
that.
is forced into the
But it
lungs
gets
by
better.
the action of
It
the
does?
pump.
This gets really weird.
Wow.
I hope y'all are watching.
The
because
dark
this
venous
gets
blood
weird.
passes through this tube.
That's crazy.
In the lungs, it takes up oxygen and becomes arterial blood.
Which we can't appreciate because it's black and white.
Yeah. But we're assuming it is red because they told us that.
Well, they're Russian. They don't ever lie.
They would never.
Isolated lungs
Never
breathe,
lie.
producing the same chemical changes as in the living animal.
Look, it's red.
Yeah.
Well, it must be.
An animal's head can also live in the isolated condition. Here is a
Yeah.
plan for the experiment.
Get
Yes.
out of town.
Yes. Oh, wait. Oh, it gets worse. It's going to get worse.
The arterial
Everybody should
pump
be watching
takes
this now.
arterial blood from the
I do love
reservoir
that
to
they
the
didn't show
head.
the real head.
While the
Oh,
venous
it's
pump
coming. Is
it?
drains off
Oh,
the venous
Oh,
blood.
it's coming.
The blood is arterialized in the reservoir where there is a steady flow of oxygen.
As a perfusionist, he knows the first
The
thing I
artificial
noticed
blood
about that.
circulation
The bubbles.
ensures the metabolism
Nah, well, that
necessary
and
for
the
life
fact that
of
they
the
had a
head.
venous pump because they put the freaking reservoir above the head. Why don't they just put it on the ground, save themselves a pump?
Well,
The
Here we go.
isolated head lives
Oh
on
my
for hours
god.
and reacts to external stimuli.
Oh no. No, they did not. Can you imagine if they tried this here? PETA with all these companies.
wait, dude, this gets, dude.
No, get out of town. That is impossible, Joe.
It's not. It's real. It's real. It's real.
No.
It's real.
I don't want to believe that.
So it
for a
gets even
second.
worse. This is nothing yet.
The isolated head even reacts to light and to sound.
Now watch. He tries to get away.
Shut up.
Watch. He's like, he's looking around, but
He's like on my legs. I can't feel my legs.
legs.
Where are my legs?
I mean, the animal rights people would be like, you're
Dude,
torturing this
yeah,
animal.
This would be bad. It's bad enough you
The
could.
revival of individual organs enabled scientists to proceed to experiment on reviving the whole organism.
Oh my.
The revival of the whole organism can be achieved with the help of an apparatus called the autojector.
The autojector,
What is the auto?
whole body, perfusion.
Good lord. Yeah.
The autojector carries out the functions of the
They were
heart
way ahead
and
of us even
lungs.
then than we are now, Joe. They had us beat in the 40s.
They did.
2025
we
America
know,
can't
there's
compete with the 40
The heart,
Russians.
by its rhythmical contractions, supplies the body with arterial blood rich in oxygen. After losing its oxygen, the blood returns to the heart through the veins. From then, it flows into the lungs, whence with a fresh supply of oxygen it returns to the heart, and then
Man, I thought
flows
the
into
Bible
the
Quorum was
arteries of
fancy.
the
Look at
organs.
this. The Bible Quorum ain't got nothing on this.
But look at this, how they even have the heart. You know, they even knew then that the apex pulls up like a piston.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people
The
do not
auto-ejector
realize that about
works
the
on
heart.
the same
Right.
They
principle.
think the heart contracts like this, but
The
it
apparatus
doesn't. It
includes a
contracts
system of
up.
pumps for supplying
and
blood
in.
and
Right.
drawing it off.
Right, because the musculature is at the bottom, so it, yeah, which makes sense based on the anatomy of the heart. I never thought of that until you just said that now.
The arterial pump supplies the organism with arterial blood. When the blood has given up its oxygen, the venous pump draws it back into the reservoir. Here, just as in the lungs, it's enriched with oxygen and returns into the organism. The blood passing into the arteries of the body ensures the necessary metabolism. In this way, the auto-ejector can perform the work of both the heart and lungs. We begin the experiment of revival. The experiment is carried out on a dog.
So they kill the animal.
Yeah, I saw that. Now they're going to try to bring it back to life using their little, their machine.
Yep.
Their fancy HLM.
So this
A
is
substance which
basically
prevents clotting is introduced into the animal's blood.
NRP,
The dog
Right.
is under an anesthetic.
Essentially, correct.
except
doesn't
with
feel
dogs,
pain.
they apparently
No
can-
interruption of the
Come
animal's
back to
normal
life.
functions as yet
Well, their
occurred.
brains don't seem as sensitive. They seem to be able to go longer with
With no oxygen.
yeah, their
Dog
brain seems
reacts
to
to
be able to
touch.
go longer. Yeah, the dog is
Pupils are
dead.
normal.
Right.
I don't know how long they left the dog for dead, but the dog's dead. Heart's not beating. Dog's dead.
A special apparatus, the chymograph, registers the breathing and the function of the dog's heart. The pulse and breathing are normal. The experiment begins. All the blood is drained off through the carotid artery.
Yeah, let's just go right to the carotid. Just drain it out.
Gosh. Now I'm interested to see what the dog's like anoxic injury level is and how much time it takes for like that to happen in their brain, because I mean, I'm a skeptic. I don't believe this shit at all, but that's me.
You don't believe this?
No.
This is real.
No way, is it?
This is real.
Is it?
This really happened.
Wow.
This is not, dude.
I don't
Do
believe
you
it.
not? Do you not? Do,
It's black and white, Joe. Why haven't we built on this?
The heart has stopped.
we have.
Why aren't we bringing dogs back to
Right,
life, Joe?
okay, dead.
I had two pass away recently.
I'm sorry. You want to get an auto-ejector? We can get one for you. Okay, now dog is dead.
Okay.
That's it. It's
That's
just
the end
ripping.
of it.
This is one
Oh,
of the animal's
There was
last
his last
songs.
little gasp. He just had his little, death rattle.
This is a final breath.
The final one.
That was it. His gasp.
Yeah, he's back to no blinking reflex.
The dog is dead.
We can see that.
Without operative interference, death would be final, as the disintegration of the body cells would gradually set in. The auto-ejector is being attached before starting the revival. The arterial pump is connected with the artery. The venous pump is connected with the vein. Ten minutes have elapsed since the
10
animal died.
minutes.
Yeah. That's,
The blood removed from the animal is pumped back into
see,
its
with
vessel.
humans,
by the
our
auto-ejector.
anoxic brain injury time is just too short. You got a few minutes and then that's it. 2, I think, is the magic number, right?
Ensures a normal blood circulation in the
Yeah, I
organs.
mean, they say
Replacing
4
the
minutes
action of the
before
dead heart and lung.
irreversible brain
Brain
damage.
injury, right.
But it really depends on age, ambient temperature.
Correct.
I mean, there's so many factors
Yeah.
that influence that.
Right.
But clearly, once you stop perfusion to the brain, you have very little time before injury is going to occur.
Correct.
Now, clinically obvious injury, it's probably going to be, somewhere between 90
The artificial blood
seconds.
circulation gradually
To
induces
2
the
minutes,
heart
yeah.
to start beating again.
They say you start having like some type of either retrograde or antegrade amnesia starts then, where they just don't remember their name, or they little small things like but you start to have some type of deficit that happens.
Sure, absolutely.
You can't wiggle your big toe, whatever the case may be.
Something
something that
got knocked off.
in your neuro exam that's off.
But then they sit there and they
The heart's action begins to be normal.
heartbeat came back.
First,
Oh my Lord, have mercy! This guy is back.
Now he's breathing.
He took his first breath. He took another breath.
the respiration is gradually restored.
He's fully coming back now. He's coming back slow. Oh, there is.
Wait till you see Fido.
Oh my God! Is he gonna start walking around and running and barking? I swear, if I see that,
Yeah, probably so.
Oh, his blink response is back. Blink
The
reflex.
dog breathes more normally and evenly. The animal's condition approaches normal.
Wow, look at that. His lungs are fully on now.
We can
again.
now disconnect the auto-ejector and leave the organism of the dog to maintain life with its own resources.
And they just, one carotid artery out, one jugular vein gone. That's all right.
The dog
They just-
soon shakes off
they
the
just
effects of the
transected them.
anesthetic.
Tied them off. Just go with one side. And
The dog
here's
is
Fido.
still weak and can't move.
Wow. So I'm assuming they have a circle too, right? In the brain?
Yes.
They do. Okay, I wasn't sure. But I assume they did, based on what I just saw. They're obviously getting blood to the other side somehow. Hell no. Running around
After
playing
10 to
catch.
12 days, the dog returns to its normal state.
Oh my God, back to his normal state.
After the experiment, dogs live for years, they grow, they put on weight, and have families.
And return to his family, they said? So hold on. Hold on. This dog was somebody's?
Apparently.
And they were okay with doing
I
that?
don't know.
Russia, man,
Look,
Russia.
Look at them all. All right. So we're going to move on to this last slide.
I'm sorry, I
And
got
that
questions
brings
that aren't
us-
even medically relevant now.
That's all right. And that brings us, look, there's a lot of ethical stuff here. But this brings us to the Transmedics device. And in deference to the harsh reality that I am running out of time, it's just unfortunate. I'm really not going to go through the Transmedics talk today. I'm going to try to wedge it in somewhere tomorrow.
Okay.
And talk about this heart in a box. But this is basically what you're looking at. And you can identify here that you have the heart here. It's in a sort of a plastic shield, like almost like an envelope, sort of
Right.
acting like a pseudo pericardium, if you will.
Right.
And they cannulate the aorta, they cannulate the pulmonary artery, and they actually perfuse the blood ejects, the natural ejection from the RV to the left side, but the arterial flow is returned to the aorta. So the pulmonary artery output goes
Right.
into a reservoir, then into an oxygenator, and then back into through a warmer, some other things, and then is pumped actually into the aorta,
Okay.
as opposed to the aorta. The LV never gets loaded.
Okay.
Okay, the RV gets loaded, but the
Right.
LV doesn't.
But the LV doesn't.
And the RV's outlet is a big, giant opening in the pulmonary artery through a cannula into a reservoir. So
Okay.
it doesn't have any resistance to flow.
Right.
So it's low resistance. So the RV pumps that, but then the LV really stays empty, and the flow is essentially.
So how do they get the blood to the aorta?
They I'll show you tomorrow.
To
but they
the to the
basically-
coronaries is what I'm
they-
worried about.
They cut the aorta probably right up above the sinotubular junction. They attach a cuff to it, and they seal that with actually a cable tie, some sutures, pledgets, typical stuff.
Something, yeah.
And they actually pump with a pulsatile pump up into the ascending aorta
And down to the
and
coronaries.
down into the coronaries. And anything that doesn't go down the coronaries, because you have now you should have a competent aortic valve, but that's
Correct.
probably not a good heart,
Right.
is going to go into an overflow that goes back to the reservoir and back around again.
Right. And that aortic valve will never open because the LV doesn't have no volume, right? Like ever.
Right.
Right.
Your pressure on the
Other side is higher.
You're
right.
increasing
in
coronary
the aortic.
And this thing does also have a tremendous amount of data that it supplies. And I think tomorrow, I'm going to try to spend the time tomorrow going over it because I have some really good slides. They're transonic slides, but I think they're very good. I think it's very good information to understand and to know. Before I go, let me see. Yes, for sure, sir. As far as I know, the Brucanecco studies were took down by some critics by claiming that these studies should not be continued as they are against social norms and morals, despite their study being of great importance in the growth of cardiopulmonary bypass. No, I agree with you. Yeah, I do think the study stopped, but I think it stopped, Akash, if you don't mind, was because of the war and basically all of the resources being poured into that. This was considered, I think, a luxury at that point in time. They were, Russia was certainly in a whole lot of trouble for some period of time around, was it 1941 when he invaded, somewhere around there. And so that, I don't think at the time the Russians really, I don't think anybody really had a problem with this. I think this was understood as science. It wasn't until after all of this that the PETA and those people got involved. And certainly my ethical position is that we have to treat these animals in the most dignified way we possibly can, but at the same time, we cannot continue to advance medicine and the continuation of the human species if we were to cease animal
trials.
experimentation.
Correct.
So
Right.
and you have to remember one of my idols is Dr. Bailey, okay, and Yellen Bailey, of course, he's since passed, but he did Baby Faye, which is the baboon heart transplant into the young girl at Loma Linda, California, way back when, and that was a really big deal, and he was threatened by PETA for the remainder of his life, which was a long time. He didn't have mail delivered to his home from that point forward.
Oh, wow.
Ever.
They
He didn't
just
want anybody to know.
flooded it. Yeah, he
it
didn't
was
wanna-
very bad. He went
Yeah.
through some really tough times. And then if you remember Dr. Mustard, right, from up in Toronto, Dr. Mustard, his idea for a heart-lung machine, and he's the only surgeon who actually has a procedure named after him in both two disciplines, orthopedic, where he transplanted the iliopsoas muscle for people with polio to help them walk.
Right, and the
then-
tetralogy of Fallot.
And then, and then the tetralogy of Fallot
Right.
procedure, the
Procedure,
mustard
correct.
procedure for
Yep.
that correction.
Mustard center.
And but his idea for the heart lung machine was to take monkey lungs, and I've got video of this too, and put them in a glass jar, right? And they breathe the lungs and pump the patient's blood through it to oxygenate it, remove CO2, and then go back into the patient. And he did several cases like that.
Oh, wow.
That was his form of a heart-lung machine.
Okay.
Was to use animal
lungs
for
as the
that.
oxygenator.
And once again, you can't do that anymore. Yeah, the oxygenator. The
you
oxygenator
cannot.
was monkey
Was
lungs.
animal
But
monkey
you
lungs.
had to have a lot of monkey lungs because they would explode.
What?
I've got video of it. It's really amazing. It's just incredibly. It looks so incredibly grotesque to us today, but at the time, man, a lot of this stuff what this Brukenyenko guy did, I can't say his name right, I'm sorry, but all that he did and all that Mustard did, what Len Bailey did, even though Baby Faye ultimately did die, he revealed to me prior to his death why she died, and it was actually a medication error given in the critical care unit. And that's actually what killed Baby Faye. It was not that the baboon heart failed. The baboon heart failed because an improper dosage of a medication killed the heart.
Oh, no.
That's what happened.
That's tragic.
It is, but that was never revealed to the public.
No, yeah. I would imagine they would keep that on the wraps to try to make it seem like it was the baboon heart that failed so people wouldn't try it again.
It was just so controversial, dude.
That's what I mean.
It was so controversial at the time.
So
But, I mean,
why protect the controversy, right?
But xenotransplantation is a real thing.
Of course, pig
And,
hearts. They're doing them regularly. I'm telling you, it's the thing.
I mean, it is the thing.
Yeah, it's a thing.
And so, I mean, we go out and shoot pigs for sport.
No, and
Right?
porcine valves. We're doing porcine valves all the damn time.
We kill them for that all the
yeah,
time, right?
and it works fine.
It's a good valve.
It's a good valve.
Their hearts are very similar to
Right,
ours.
yeah.
It's really kind of interesting.
Yeah,
But anyway,
so
look, with all of that said, I think that I have done all I can do. I've gone a little bit over our time. I hope everyone will forgive me for that. And thank you very much, Akash. And I will thank you. I appreciate it. He said, Akash said we had a great session. He appreciates it. We
you.
appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, we do.
We really do. And would love to have you online.
Yeah.
You could have called in. You could come here, visit with us, whatever. In fact,
Whatever.
people don't know, but we're moving to a new studio. So we have outgrown this studio. I mean, now that YouTube is monetizing us, I made $4 yesterday. I mean, dude, I'm ready to buy. I'm ready to build a studio.
Let's go straight to Hollywood, Joe. Let's just
I'm
skip it all.
telling you, just skip it.
Skip it
Which
all.
we really are doing. We are
Let's go
building
big time.
We are building a new studio, and it's going to be equipped to be able to do on-site training as well, and ECMO simulations.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Things like that.
Yeah,
So
you can
I think there's
actually-
going to be a lot of opportunity. And then, of course, we're also involved heavily with the Houston Methodist system here in Houston, Texas, and they are very eager at one of our new facilities, which is beautiful.
I think you're going to be training their ICU staff,
and
right?
we're going to be right, and we're going to be doing. We're doing even with Memorial Hermann the Woodlands. We do a lot of work with the Memorial System as well, and we utilize their education space for our simulations and stuff. Most of our didactic is usually online, but I kind of miss a live audience. A live audience is always kind of fun, but I mean, the harsh reality is, we had COVID. This all happened because of COVID.
It did.
Really, this all happened
It
because
did.
of COVID.
The whole rise of the whole
Okay.
work from home, learn from home,
Virtual.
everything from home.
Absolutely.
It's
But I think we're going back, so I think you have to be able to adapt, and I think that it's going to be important for us to have live programs again.
I
think
feel like
that's coming.
I feel like the future is kind of like you said. It's kind of more heading towards like a hybrid nature.
Yes.
Like do the didactics.
Yes.
In video fashion, And then, of course, if you're learning ECMO, you got to touch the machine. There's
But there's nothing like sitting with a group of people.
Absolutely. I agree.
Seeing your friends, your colleagues, talking about this or that, that kind of collegial relationship doesn't occur well in the virtual world.
No.
It really doesn't. We're not quite there yet. That
No.
might happen one day, but it's not going to be in my lifetime.
Especially the collegial level. There's parts of college that you can't substitute for online, Joe.
Right. That's right.
The whole college experience. You know
Correct.
what I mean? Which is important.
And I think that's sort of the same with the conference experience. But I think what you'll see is far fewer conferences and only the best ones will survive.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see the market dictate
I feel
that.
there's a lot of them right now. I feel like I'm getting emails every few weeks of a new conference.
Absolutely.
Like, wow.
What time do we start tomorrow? 11? And that's with Matt? Yes. Okay. Is he the only speaker tomorrow? Perfect. 11 o'clock tomorrow, same place, same 11 o'clock though, so not same time, but same channel.
Same bat
Different
channel.
time, same bat channel, same channel, exactly. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you all so very much, and have a great rest of your day. Peace out.
Bye.